Okay, so let's get this meeting started. So I'll call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. I'm gonna have to change the agenda because I forgot to put the approve and modify the agenda on there. So as kind of between 1 and 2, I'm gonna say does anybody have a addition or modification to the agenda? And other than calling for the vote. Jackie Brown texted me earlier while she was on the other meeting and said she won't be able to be here for the Basin Roundtable update. And so item 7B, we won't be doing, Jackie won't be joining us for that. And down in 10, between 10 and 11, say 10A, Rebecca Breesmore has asked for 5 minutes to talk about the Shoshone project really quick. So I'd like to add 5 minutes to the agenda for hers, and really the same amount of time because she'll be taking Jackie's 5 minutes. So those would be the adjustments to the agenda. Does anybody have any?
Move to approve. Motion to approve the agenda as adjusted.
Okay, you're moving. You want a second? Second. Okay, so Jeff. So Jeff made the motion and T. Wright seconded. All in favor of modifying and approving the modifications to the agenda, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed, say. Okay. The agenda is modified. So our first order of business is appointment of members. Back in November, Moffat County did not appoint the Moffat County representative. So they have thus far. Miranda Kalchek is the appointed member for Moffat County. Did you have your 10-minute speech ready?
Sure.
And then, so welcome.
Thank you.
And then, is Jeff on there by chance? Oh,
Me, Jeff?
yeah, so yes, you, Jeff. So at the November meeting, Callie Scritchfield was not approved. She was recommended from this roundtable to be our House Senate representative. So Jeff did some checking on that. Can you just summarize that process and where we're at with that, Jeff?
Yeah, so the process kind of filters up through the roundtable to the CWCB, and then we contact the chair of the House Ag Resources Committee and the Senate Ag Resources Committee, whatever those titles are. And this year we had 3 legislative appointees for roundtables across the state, Callie being one of those. So we just kind of submitted those in batch, all 3 of them at one time. And the committees approved all 3 of those legislative appointees to the roundtable unanimously. So congrats, Callie, you're still a member of the roundtable.
Good. All right. Congratulations, Callie. Did she ever?
Is she online?
I haven't seen her, but
How many folks do we have online?
what, we're gonna get to that.
Oh, we're gonna get to it.
Yep. So we're gonna do something a little different today for introduction of members. What I'd like is the people in the room. Let's just go around and just say who you are. We know who the members are, and who aren't members. We're all members, so here in the room. And then I thought I would call out the members online and get a positive response to just verify that they are online. And then I wasn't gonna go through the rest of the list at this point. We'll get a chance to meet probably most of the people online during the because they're obviously on for presentations and whatever. But we're just trying to make these a little bit faster. So I will start. I'm Steve Hinkemeyer. I'm the Moffett County Municipalities rep. Jeff?
I'm Jeff Myers. I'm an at-large rep, retired rancher from southwestern Round County, still irrigating after all these years.
I'm Jeff Comstock. I'm a rep for public at large also.
Wright Dickinson, I'm the official greenie on the list. I represent the Green River Basin. Mike Campbell, I represent Chinook Conservancy District.
Jonathan Aller, non-voting out of Basin member from the real estate group now.
Ken Brenner, Upper Yampa Water Conservancy District.
Bill Myers, agricultural representative.
Miranda Kochek, Norfolk County.
Doug Davis, at large.
Rebecca Breesemore, Colorado River District. Madison Luxworthy, environmental representative.
Frank Alphone, I'm the domestic water provider rep. Chris Collins, and at large from the White River.
I'm Katie, I'm the reporter.
Happy to stand up for the agricultural lands after the liaison.
Okay, so I'll go down through that list of folks that are online that are members. Alden?
Al Vandenbrink, municipal rep, Rio Blanco County.
Thank you. Bill, is that Bill Badaraka?
Yep, I'm here at large. Can you hear me?
We can. Thank you, Bill.
Okay.
Chuck Whiteman?
Here, I'm at large.
Okay.
Jay Shin, Pothook.
Oh, Jay, you're on? Okay. I hadn't made it that far down the list yet. Travis, are you on?
Yeah, Travis Day, Rio Blanco at large.
Okay. Sonia Macy's?
Yes, here, Sonia,
Okay.
County Commissioner.
Yes, well. Doug, are you still with us? Doug Monger?
It's his screen, isn't it?
I don't see, I don't see anybody. Oh, there he's. Okay, so it says Doug's on. We'll check back in with him to make sure he is. And I think those are all the members that are online. Is that correct? That are online that aren't in the room. Are there any other members that are online that aren't in the room that haven't introduced themselves?
Steve, I'm here. This is Casey Green with the Great Northern Water Conservancy District.
Okay, Casey, I hadn't seen you, so thank you. Okay. So we have a quorum. So our first order of business is to review and approve the November 8th, 2023 minutes. They're in the packet. Has everybody had a chance to review those?
Alphone makes a motion to approve the minutes from November 8th, 2023 meeting.
Brenner, second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from November 8th. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes as written, please say aye.
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 Okay, thank you. Any opposed, say nay. Okay, motion passes. Okay, our next order of business, the original item 5 is review and ratify the December 11th, 2023 comments on the Bureau of Rec, Colorado River Interim Operations, SEIS. So at our November meeting, we said we were gonna try to get that out. The deadline was December 11th to get that to the Bureau of Rec. So our original plan was to try to do an online vote, but we were told that probably doesn't work as well as it should. So we were asked to send the draft out, gather comments, correct the draft, send the final out for comments. And then if we received any no comments or we don't like this or whatever, we probably wouldn't have sent comments out. So ultimately, the only comments we had from the final draft was good job. So I signed that letter and loaded it into the Bureau of Rec's website. And Jeff Rodriguez, who's on with us tonight, said the thing to do would be to review that document, which is in your packet, 3-page letter, and then ask for basically a ratification vote because the comments were set, but that we approved the comments as they were made.
Mr. Chairman, I move to ratify the comments.
Okay.
I'll
I have a
s-
motion.
Do you think that will speed your review up at all?
Yes, please.
I'll second it, Sonia.
Okay, so T-Wright and Sonia.
We
Okay.
may have been the only roundtable nimble enough to get comments in on that short 45-day window.
Yep. So I have a
You
motion
really
on.
nice signature, Steve.
Sorry.
You have a really nice signature.
Oh, thank you.
Plus points for penmanship.
So, I have a motion on the floor and a second. Any comments on that letter?
I'll just jump in real quick because I think I was the one, this is Sonia, who said that you did a really good job with it. And I really appreciate the opportunity for everybody to look at it in advance of it going out. I thought it was really, really well done, and I appreciate you guys taking the time to do it. And sorry I couldn't be of more help, but I'm happy to ratify it and yeah, happy to support. Thanks.
Thanks, Sonia. Any other comments? Hearing none, all in favor of ratifying the letter as it was sent out on December 11th, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Nay? Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you. Did we get any public comment requests, Katie or Patrick?
Not that I know.
Okay, does anybody in the room have a public comment request or online, I guess? Okay. Hearing none, we will move along. So, CWCB updates. Jeff, you've got 5 minutes. And I loaded the November Basin Roundtable balance sheet as part of our meeting packet.
Okay, great. While I'm pulling up my presentation, maybe I'll just let Amy from the interstate team go first, real quick.
Thanks, Jeff. Happy to do that if that works for everyone. I know that there's a separate spot on the agenda, but my update is pretty quick tonight. I actually don't even have a PowerPoint, but just wanted to go over a few quick things that I think a lot of you are already aware of. And the first, of course, is the DSEIS, the draft supplemental EIS comments. And I think you all are pretty familiar with what's in our comment letter, the UCRC's comment letter, because it's very similar to what is in your comment letter, which is great. And I just want to start by saying I really appreciate the coordination on that and the communication. Had some really good talks with Jeff, and you know, it was just really helpful to talk through some of that. So appreciate that. What you saw in the UCRC comment letter was, first of all, you know, 4 upper division states standing together in our comments, which we think is really important. Our voices are always more powerful when we speak together. So we were happy that all 4 upper division states were able to come together on those. And really what we were focused on was we urged reclamation to consider measures for lower basin reductions in use that would be enforceable, that would be verifiable, that would be mandatory. And we didn't necessarily see that in the preferred alternative that they put forward. So what we saw in that preferred alternative was really a reliance on voluntary agreements in the lower basin states to achieve reductions in use. And we await additional information about exactly what reclamation is going to do first and how those reductions would be achieved. A lot of open questions that I think we've talked about before, like how much of that conserved water would be water that they were going to conserve anyway under the DCP or other mechanisms. How much of it is water they can take out of their storage bank and need later through ICS, and you know, all these issues we've talked about before. But those are kind of the open questions that we have about how that alternative would be implemented. So we look forward to hearing more from Reclamation about what they're going to do. And also, you know, we look forward to seeing those agreements as they come out in the lower basin. And as I have mentioned, we can expect to see those agreements reflected in the 24-month studies as they are finalized and executed. So hopefully more to come on that. But as we are seeing this year, you know, one good year is not enough to bail us out. We should be prepared for dry years, and we should have the tools available to us, Reclamation should, to deal with that. So I'm curious to see how this dry hydrology we're seeing so far could impact the direction, but we're a little bit unclear whether it will. So that's the DSEIS, but of course our focus, as we've told you all before, and I think the focus across the basin is really on the post-2026 negotiations, and as you've heard us say many times before, getting a better deal this time around. You know, we're really not happy when we look back on how the 07 guidelines have performed, the balancing releases that have occurred out of Powell, and really kind of tying our hands in terms of rebuilding storage, which we see as a major deficiency of the 07 guidelines, and we're working hard to try to get a better deal this time. So we are engaged with the other basin states. We're working together to try to identify where we agree and where we don't agree. And we're working pretty hard to get the best deal we can in this next go around. So that's really what our focus is right now. The other thing I just wanted to mention is System Conservation Pilot Program. The application window closed in December. We in Colorado received 51 applications within Colorado for System Conservation Pilot Program projects. And just, you know, as you all know, we committed to sending out the application materials that we received this year. And we did just that on Friday. So those who signed up to receive them should have received the application materials. And we have not done a comprehensive review yet, but we will be working through those in the coming weeks. So I think that's all the information I have for you all tonight. Appreciate you making time for me, and happy to take any questions you might have.
51 proposals for what type or what volume of water?
Was that a question about the volume of water in the SEPP applications?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think that what we are looking at right now, and I want to be cautious about this because this is just kind of the preliminary applications and proposals, but I think it's an estimated around 17,000 acre feet of conserved consumptive use in Colorado, just in the proposals. And I can't give you a number across the entire upper basin because frankly, I just haven't seen the proposals in the other upper division states.
Anybody online have a question for Amy? Any more questions in the room, Jeff?
So this isn't exactly a question, Amy, it's Jeff, but Amy was kind enough to attend our Big River Committee meeting. We spent a little more time talking about comments and the UCRC process. She was very careful, as she was at the beginning of her discussion, to point out that the UCRC letter represented consensus. And that is important and it's great. But I just want to say for your consumption, that everybody who knows anything knows that you are looking at the primary spearhead of that effort right here. So maybe the consensus, maybe New Mexico, Wyoming, and Utah were happy to say, yeah, we'll go along, but we know who really did the work. So thank you, Amy.
Flatter me too much, Jeff. Thank you. It's very, very kind of you, but it was a team effort. There were a lot of people involved. Just want to say that, but I really, really appreciate your support and recognition. So thank you.
All right, thanks, Amy. Jeff, do you have your presentation ready to roll?
I think so. Can you see that?
We can.
Okay, great. I'll try to keep this brief. Just a few quick updates for you all, and then certainly be available for any questions. First things first, the climate change in Colorado report was released on Monday, 1/8. So I've been mentioning this in the last few roundtable meetings as a heads up for you all, but just a reminder, this is an update to the 2014 report, and it focuses on the release of new climate models and how they compare to the models used in the past two reports in 2008 and 2014. It also includes a lot of interactive web-based tools, charts, maps, things like that. I'll drop a link for their webpage in the chat when I'm done here, but there's some really cool tools there for folks that are out there, kind of communicating some of this information, or, for people like us who just kind of are interested in some of this stuff. So check it out. It's a pretty great report with a lot of really cool tools associated with it. Also wanted to mention the soil moisture survey. So the Colorado Open Soil Moisture Infrastructure and Monitoring Project, which I think you probably are all familiar with. Collaboration between Colorado State University researchers, the River District, the Climate Center, Yampa Valley Sustainability Council, NIDIS, and a bunch of others are seeking to create an inventory of existing networks and conduct a needs assessment for soil moisture data needs around the state. And so they have this survey open until February 5th. And the results from this survey will directly influence where they focus funding and deploy more soil moisture sensors in Colorado. So if you're interested in that, fill out the survey. I'll drop a link for that in the chat as well. Also, just wanted to mention the CWCB stakeholder guide again. Russ Sands and I are going to be hitting the road, making it to all the roundtables starting in February. It'll probably bleed into probably April, May timeframe, just for us to get around to all the roundtables. So Steve, I'll keep you posted on that, but we're going to be giving a presentation on that guide, which is really just a collection of resources for our stakeholder groups and an opportunity for us to create better alignment between the roundtables, the IBCC, and the CWCB board. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. And that, presentation will be just to kind of go over what we've put in the guide so far, talk about the contents of it, and get an initial round of roundtable feedback on some of that stuff that concerns you all directly. I won't spend too much time on the IBCC update. I'll let Ken and Jeff give an update on that later on in the meeting, and certainly provide some more information on that. But also just wanted to mention the Wildfire Ready Watersheds program, the technical assistance and local capacity programs are still accepting applications. There's still money in both of those programs. And that funding is tied to the state's ARPA funding. So it has a time limit on it. It all needs to be contracted by the end of this year. So December 31 of 2024. So I'm going to keep mentioning it at every roundtable meeting till we either get to that date or hopefully run out of funds for those programs. And then just wanted to give you a heads up. We have a couple CWCB reports coming out in 2024. They're both probably going to daylight at Water Congress later this month, but just wanted to give you guys a heads up. I'll provide an update and links and all that stuff at the March meeting. But that is the report from the Urban Landscape Conservation Task Force. So what those individuals have been working on over the last year, summarized in a report. And then also kind of volume 2 of the turf replacement analysis report we put out there a couple of years ago. BBC has been helping us update that report with new data and new analysis. So just wanted to give you a heads up on that. And I think that's all I got for you. Happy to take any questions if there are any.
Anybody in the room have questions for Jeff? Anybody online? Mindy, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I have a question about that soil moisture survey. Where do you go to find that, to distribute that to people? Or is that just for the roundtable?
No, you can distribute it to people. I was asked to just present it at roundtable meetings for distribution and stuff like that. I'll put a link in the chat. It's just a Google form, but I'll put a link for that in the chat.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, any other questions or comments for Jeff? Online? Anyone else? Okay, thanks, Jeff.
No problem. I'll be here all night. So if anything comes up, just holler at me.
Okay, sounds good. So Jackie wasn't going to be able to make it, so for our regular meeting. So our next topic is the Drought Task Force. Mike?
Boy. Yeah. I should have came a little more prepared with some of the stuff. Is there any way we can put that slideshow back up?
Yeah. I think I'm on here. Well, Patrick has it. Or are you broadcasting right now?
Well, while he's looking, do
you want me to share?
We finished the Drought Task Force December 7th in Denver. And kind of how we came about our last meeting was basically a voting session. We started out with hundreds of ideas, and we narrowed it down to what we called a short list. And then we narrowed that short list down to even more. I think there was, what, 18? There was 18 items that we voted on. I believe 9 of those passed. 8, was it 8 passed? 8 of them passed. The ones that passed were very good. You know, we had, you know, it was on reservoirs, you know, to see if we can get more reservoirs. Watersheds and forest management was included in that, which I think is, you know, been a topic that's been sorely dismissed. Of course, aging infrastructure, you know, we asked them to throw more money into that. And so now from this point on, with the legislation, oh, here we go, right here. With the legislation moving forward here, you know, in the next couple of months, we'll see which of those items they pick up and run. Dylan Roberts told me the other day that this will be a big water use legislation. So I'd be curious to see how many of those that we recommended they picked up and used. I have heard through the grapevine there's some narratives that were, so a narrative was something that didn't get approved in the voting, but we left it in a narrative package just because, you know, maybe there was something they could do. Well, I had heard through the grapevine there's some stuff that's coming down the pipeline in the narrative package. And
Senator Roberts referenced that too, Mike, in his talk at the Big River Committee. He also mentioned the narrative idea.
Yeah, and so did he come right out and say which ones he was?
No, he wasn't specific about that. This list at the bottom, there were a total of 11. Items 1 through 4 really represented discussion about storage. Item 5 was that controversial power plant water transition one. And then the rest of them kind of dribbled on out. And Ken and I, for sake of brevity, just, but they're there in the report. It's easy to follow. It's easy to get to that narrative section and find it. But like you were saying, like the first 4, and so my hope when I heard him say that was that they're going to take that part seriously, because storage is sure something that we could use folks.
He did mention that they would, one of his bills would be to use stored water for in-stream flows to be able to change that. That was the only one he actually mentioned.
So I think it's a little early in the game to decide what they're gonna write up and use. There's some of those ideas that I really hope they take off and do it. Most of them are money, you know, we could always use more money in the water world. So, but that was quite the process. I'm really glad that it's over. It was pretty demanding. I have got to know every lobbyist in the state of Colorado since on that. And so it's going to be interesting to see where this goes. So all I can say is that, you know, hang on tight. You know, I can already pull up my own socks and everybody else. See what happens here.
So I have a question. I don't proclaim to understand how government works at the state level. Will each one of these recommendations need sponsors to get them move forward? And that's the next step, I assume, or?
Yeah, I'm assuming that with the legislation, there's gonna have to be, you know, a senator or somebody to pick it up.
Any indication of all gonna get sponsored, or do we know, or when will we know?
They each have 5 bills that they can introduce, 5 bill titles. It's up to them to decide out of all of the myriad of topics that they could bring forward if this is something that. So we will know by the end of the month, January, we'll get a better idea. But some people hold on to stuff. Certain groups have additional bill titles they can bring up. So the interim committee has, I think, 10 bills, titles themselves. So it's really too early to tell.
We're not safe until the final count.
You know for sure in May.
And they can take a really good recommendation and mess it up.
Ruin
They can change them.
Right. I mean, leave it to legislation to screw that, but they had a really, I mean, we had a very good group together. All very, very knowledgeable. I think there was maybe 1 or 2 people on there that was fairly new to water, but most of them were, you know, they were very knowledgeable, by far more than I was, that's for sure. It was a really good group, but, yeah, I was pretty happy with the caliber of people. Of all walks, I mean, so.
Mike, one thing we didn't get a chance to ask Jackie, because we never got to this list of the 3 that were considered but not approved. But one of the ones I was really curious about, why do you think that idea put forward by Andy Mueller for, you know, this is a very, very, very paraphrased way of saying what that idea was, but that implementation of standards or guidelines for interstate conserved consumptive use. Why do you think that didn't pass?
You know, I don't know. I think the consensus that I got from most people was that we didn't feel, or the general consensus was that group did not feel like we should tell legislation what they should do. And that's basically what that was. So that was asking legislation to pick up a guideline and send it to other states and say, Colorado will not share our water until the lower basin states clean up their act. So in my mind, I was a little like you. I thought that was something that should have probably passed, but the majority of people that I talked to, especially the ones that were against it, just felt like we were going too far.
Fortunately, we don't have to struggle with that up here. We'll share our opinion.
Anybody online have a question for Mike on anything? Don't see any hands. Mike, you can go for it.
Well, thanks for the hard work, man. That was a tough
keep the
6
praise on
months.
you,
I really
Dave.
appreciate you.
It was a good learning experience. It's amazing how different states of the different people in different parts of the state think about water and their different individual problems. It really makes you, you know, think how much
I want to hear more from you before too long about that June Mountain Mayville ditch project.
Oh, I think we'll be on the agenda in May, maybe.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's what we're thinking.
We're damn near done. We had a meeting today, what April, it looks like we're ready to be done. We're way ahead of schedule.
All right. Amy, I see you're still on. Do you want another crack at the water commissioner's corner?
No, I was just about to log off. Like you got
Okay.
all you got all I had.
Lucky you.
Okay, well, we kept you for a couple hours, so.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
All right, Jonathan, you're up.
Well, thank you all for putting some time on the agenda for me tonight. I just am here to share some information. There's no ask of the roundtable at this point. Just want to keep you all informed on kind of a developing forest collaborative that's within the boundaries of the Yampa White Green Roundtable. So it's a nascent group, but we've got some legs under us. And so I'm just wanting to let you know where we've been, where we're going, and an invitation to you all as individuals, as representatives for other entities, and as a roundtable to be involved. So lot of opportunity, and we're hoping that it'll end up with a heck of a lot of potential over the years.
Mr. Chairman, I have to divulge that I'm disclose to the group that I'm on that Headwaters Steering Committee and also a member of their executive committee. Just want everybody to know that. Thank you. That's all.
Thanks, Ken. Yep, Ken's been with us helping along and shedding some much needed guidance and experience in the room. So thank you, Ken. It's the Headwaters of the Colorado Initiative. We've chosen that name because the Little Snake and more of the Elk River headwaters as a primary contributor to the Colorado River Basin. And we are focused on some of those things that the Drought Task Force was just talking about, forest health, wildfire risk mitigation, and predominantly increased water yields through forest management and engagement with forest resources. Go right ahead, Patrick. Really, it's a collaborative endeavor. We've got a lot of folks. I've got the next slides kind of showing who's all involved, but we're really looking to improve the conditions of the forest and the range, you know, at lower elevations that come down to the west side of that. The real idea, and a lot of the partners are at the table because we've got a heck of a lot of good work that's going on in the forest and in the range. And when you go look at it, it ends at a fence line 9 times out of 10. And that's because the federal dollars run out at the state, or the state goes to the Colorado, or Colorado to Wyoming, private to, you know, state or federal. And so everyone's wanting to expand the work that's being done across those fence lines, across the jurisdictional lines, and also be able to make better use of the available funding through increased coordination and partnerships. So that's really the idea behind all of this. This is the map that we drew out, and it's very early in its development. It's largely based just on geographic and hydrologic watershed lines. So HUC 10, USGS designations. And we drew it kind of, you can see it's the Elk River to the west, bordered by the Continental Divide, but all the waters that are flowing into the Elk River and then into the Yampa are included. And as you go north, it's all the forks of the Little Snake in Colorado and those contributing tributaries, including Sabre Creek in Wyoming, that flow into the Little Snake. Traveling over to the east, or I'm sorry, over to the west, it ends at the confluence of Sandwash in the Little Snake River there, and then follows the watershed line down just about to Craig, and then runs just north of Highway 40 along that southern boundary. So it takes in quite a lot of ground. In total, this is 1.4 million acres. And you can see on this kind of shows you where we're sitting there. And those are just those USGS kind of hydrologic units that it's based on. So really kind of a broad net at this point. I'm sure that'll get refined down, but this is the landscapes that a lot of these existing and from the get-go, these partnering agencies are actively working in those areas, and they wanted to see a lot of the land that they're working on included in this boundary. So really broad net. You can see it's a lot of Forest Service, a lot of BLM as you get down into the rangeland, quite a bit of state, and then really importantly, a lot of private land too. So we're looking at a collaborative that's taking into account all those different levels of agency, a lot of private lands, you know, really cross-boundary participation. And this list is who's been at the table so far. This last one's really the most important. We're working now to increase our outreach and try to gather more people around the table, and just to let people know that we're working in this area and that we'd love to have their input, participation. However, they choose to give that to us, whether through full participation or just sending me an email or something like that with your thoughts. So please do consider that. So where we've been, it's been, we're coming into, I guess, the second year now. It started out with a grant from the Walton Foundation to conduct a social kind of analysis of what are the needs and issues in the area. What are the challenges that the stakeholders in this area are facing currently? They spent a lot of time doing that with stakeholder interviews and mailings. Some of you may have received or participated in some of those. I don't know where all they went out. But that was the first year to understand what needed to be done. And then last March, we had kind of an initial partner meeting over in Laramie at the Forest Service headquarters in Wyoming, gathering up the initial stakeholders, which was largely the agency folks, to kind of hear from their perspective how they analyzed the results of that study. What did that mean to them? What opportunities did they see that this collaborative could help them conduct the work that they're already trying to get through, and what other opportunities might be available through the increased partnership and stakeholders. Since then, we've done a lot of internal development. So we've been working really hard to develop a charter. We don't have bylaws yet, but we've developed a charter that identifies what the structure of that collaborative is, how we make decisions, how we participate in these issues, and also that we've hired some staff to increase our capacity, and we've set up a fiscal sponsor with the National Forest Foundation and a staffing sponsor with Western Landowners Alliance. So those two organizations are kind of helping out with the money and staffing departments.
I know Ken has hand up. Do you mind if I go?
I think Ken was telling me.
I'm helping him with this time.
Oh, okay. Can you explain a little bit more on the staffing sponsors? You said Western Landowners is providing with staffing assistance. Are they providing just out of curiosity?
So currently we're working on a grant from the Water Foundation that we received to help with capacity and staffing. And I'm employed right now as the coordinator through the Little Snake River Conservation District until April. At that time, Western Landowners is going to house the staff, and that position is going to be posted in February, so here pretty soon. And they're going to post that position and run through their process on that, and then they'll be housing the staff, but that staff member will be completely driven by the steering committee of this organization. Being that this organization is not a formal entity in that sense, we don't have the ability to receive grants or to hire staff. So National Forest Foundation is kind of holding the money for us and acting as a grant sponsor. Western Landowners Alliance is actually making the position available to hire the coordinator for this. So that's a good question.
So is that a difficult process? I mean, or is it?
That's what there's been a lot of from about April when we started developing the mission, vision, goals, and seeing that like this, there's a need for this. From April till about now was a lot of that internal negotiation, a lot between WLA and NFF to figure out how that relationship was, and then what that two relationships to the collaborative was too. So yeah, there's a lot of back and forth with that. And that's why we've been making great strides, but it's been really internal because of all that like organization that was necessary. And so that's what a lot of this is just showing. Like we've been applying for grants, we've been developing that internal structure. We're at the point where we can make decisions, we can vote on things. We've got representatives from those different agencies and different stakeholder groups. And we're getting towards, we're at this next upcoming meeting. We're going to start assigning some subcommittees to identify projects, do some baseline analysis, and go about it, throughout the whole step-by-step process. So where we're at now, we had just submitted a Bureau of Reclamation Water Smart grant in December for watershed coordination groups, and it provides funding to be able to build up these groups, get them up and running, and provide for some planning assistance. We just last week we had a meeting here in Craig with the steering committee at the BLM office, and we decided that we're now kind of ready to have our next, and you might call it our first full public stakeholder meeting. We're gonna find out the schedule for that. On Friday, we'll have another meeting and we're gonna figure out the best time to have it. And that's what I'd like to share all that date with all of you when we know it, as an opportunity for anyone to be involved and come share your thoughts or just even to see where we are with this. So that's coming up here very soon. So these next slides are just kind of showing you here's our vision, mission, kind of the goals and objectives. But generally, it's to demonstrate that landscape resilience. These forests, for as long as they've been up there, have acted as buffers between the land and the atmosphere, and that's through our rain, through climate, temperature, moisture, and the way that all comes off. If you drive between Steamboat and Bags or Bags over to Saratoga, it'd be hard for anyone to drive over that mountain pass and say this looks good. That'd be a very difficult statement to make. So that's what most of the partners have realized. We feel that these forests can do better, and we can do better by these forests, and we can get those objectives like increased water yields, healthier forests, better local economies from these resources, and being at headwaters of the Colorado River benefits all the things that we're talking about at these meetings. Next slide, please. The mission's kind of along with that, but we'd like to take that vision and use that to instill this passion to create a functional forest that meets that vision through that increased and beneficial use of the resource on the Little Snake and Yampa rivers. We plan to do that through a science-based ecosystem planning process that we've applied for funding to go into that, the coordinated partnerships that we've established and are hoping to grow. And then using that funding and the time of these to have more efficient actions and projects. So we'd like to just proactively address these things. We've got both environmental and social stressors in this area, from shifting economies, changing demographics, things like that. A lot of different views. We'd like to get them together and be able to help pave the way so that these differences can actually end up being a benefit to us through the increased information and not a detriment that holds our federal agencies in particular in handcuffs. They're afraid to do anything because of the public discourse that comes from it. And so we'd like to help them by kind of getting that discourse out in front and being able to move forward with some goals. Agriculture is a big deal. We'd like to see more timber products coming off. We'd like to see all of it done with a scientific and really kind of ecological perspective. You go next slide. So the objectives to meet that, we'd like to enhance the headwater resources, scale up the existing activity on these forests. We've got a lot of folks that work in those areas saying they either can't get up there to do their work, or they're being limited heavily in what they can produce. Integrate that forest productivity with biodiversity conservation. That's really critical with our partners. Support the communities here. Craig in particular is kind of at a crossroads with where it might go into the future, and this would be a good opportunity to create some diversity in that economic potential. Produce renewable energy feedstocks and really to enable an economically viable rural communities here in the Little Snake and Yampa basins. So our next steps, like I said, we're gonna schedule a meeting. It'll be in the first 2 weeks of February, and I'll find a way to share that all with you, maybe through Patrick or Steve, to get that date out once we get it set. We're working to continue outreach to stakeholders and really develop this group, get more people at the table, begin to coordinate and fund across those boundaries. We've got a list of projects that many of those partners are going to be doing this summer as part of their planned work, and we'd like to see what of that can cross over to these other partners areas as well. Begin the watershed restoration planning process. That Water Smart grant that we applied for is largely intended to help with that. Hire a consultant to get a comprehensive plan that'll guide these actions for the next years. and then start project planning and get into that project implementation, which is what most of the partners are really excited about. Next slide, I think that might be about it. So that is where we're at and where we're going. I just wanted to kind of share with you what we knew so far. Put a lot of time into just developing those few statements, goals, and objectives. We'd love to, eventually see the roundtable potentially have a member selected to be a part of this collaborative. And like I said, each of you from your own entities or as individuals are more than welcome as well. My email for this, headwatersofthecolorado@gmail.com. If you have any questions or would like, just a direct line to get those dates or anything, send me an email and I'll shoot you whatever information you might need if I have it. More than happy to share and get you involved as you like. Any questions or comments?
Jonathan, would this potentially for funding fall into the Healthy Watersheds grant program that CWCB has? Is that something you're exploring?
We've been looking at a lot of different areas and that's come up. Same with that, the fire ready watersheds too. So, yep, those are some areas we're looking into.
The only thing I would add is that there's really at this phase, we're going into a kind of a long planning process. It's probably optimistically 18 months. It could be even closer to 3 years. But we want to do this right. And you can see from the scale of this and by the number of different people that are going to be affected, it's a big lift. It's going to take some time and effort. Concurrently though, there have been projects going on. And I know Larry Hicks, who runs the conservation of this district up there, has millions of dollars of projects that he's going to be doing this summer. Private landowners are ready to go. The BLM is real strong. Forest Service is more hesitant. They're more cautious about entering into this. But there will be both a very large planning effort as well as actual projects being accomplished that will continue to scale over time. But otherwise, Jonathan, thanks. Good job.
Thank you. Yeah.
One of the two points, I guess, Jonathan. One of the things that we have danced around in Big River or since the management, I guess, is this topic of forest health and wildfire readiness. And Pat, I saw that Ladder Ranch was one of your collaborators, and of course they would be. It's right in their wheelhouse and they're right in the heart of the geography. Pat has always seemed to have a vision for what the starting point should be for the Big River Committee. But I have never been able to figure out which end of the rope to grab, I guess. So it seems like this might be a great opportunity because of your participation in the BRC and your sort of seminal role here, John, to help bring that into, that arm of the roundtable so we can start thinking from a policy standpoint, what are we talking about trying to accomplish? And probably a lot of the limitations sitting right here in this chair. Because every time I talk to Pat, he says, well, come up to the ranch and I'll show you. And of course, I can't ever do that. But I just think there's got to be a place here for you on both sides of that to help us, figure out the starting point. What we're really good at is understanding what a policy issue is and then developing our opinion about what we should do. But we're having a hard time figuring out where we would enter the discussion, I guess. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, letters of recommendation or support, which you were reluctant to do because of the timing. That was, I don't think it was any reflection on this group that they don't support this kind of work. It just was a very short time frame to ask for a letter of support. But in the future, now you know more about this. We'll have updates as often as you would like. There's tons of work. I mean, we could get involved in the committees. You'll see at that initial stakeholder meeting in mid-February, that we're gonna try to get people to actually sign up to participate on these various committees. There'll probably be, I would guess, at least 3 or 4, and there could be more committees that are working on projects, on the planning phase of this, on the maps and permitting. There's a ton of work to do. And that's a great way for us to support this.
And part of Jeff, I think part of the key to support what Ken is saying, I'm very supportive of what you guys are doing. That's kept me in on the loop. And Senator Bennett is the real horse in this, because he understands that the federal system is tied in knots, and this forest ain't healthy, and on the current regime, nobody did anything done. And it's very sad, but Ken's comment was spot on. Forest Service is reluctant. And this is an opportunity to change the rules of the game and how things are done. And we done in a collaborative, so we're not, these guys aren't going to run over anybody. But we gotta support this. We gotta participate in this. And part of the puzzle in this thing is the watershed part of this.
Exactly.
That's what we're in. When we started on this thing, and I was IBC, on IBC rep, I put forest health in the very beginning, and not only was laughed out of the room, I was threatened by some of the state folks at the time not to even mention forest health in this.
Now it's a priority for DNR.
Well, because the damn forest is burnt and fallen down around them, and and so, but what these guys are trying to do, and more importantly, out of this, we're going to change the federal system so we do this thing right. And so I can't be more supportive of what you guys are doing. The only criticism I have is you didn't come to Browns Park. You didn't draw the line and include me. And we will in time. I get the fact that the route in Medicine Bow has got to be the critical focus of this right now. Eventually we'll get to the sagebrush lands, whatever. But guys are on the right track. We got to be supportive, and yes, we should. Individually, people of this roundtable ought to get involved, or somebody lands on from the deal. But yeah, you guys are on the right track. You got to be supportive, and whether it's various funding sources that we can help you with, whatever. Part of all of this, in all of this, is we're going to have to getting the agencies support to change their management of this forest. That's the only way bureaucrats going to change the way they operate. Right now, they're all, because everybody's beating them over the head. And hopefully out of this, you can actually get, I mean, there's more than a few exemptions, stewardship, both in the FLIPMA and the Forest Planning Act, that you could drop these forests into they were called experimental forests. And you could change and use different NEPA stuff. The things right now that gum everybody up, you could actually get a broader, what I'm trying to say is get rid of the red tape so you can actually do something.
Streamline.
Yes, and ultimately in this thing, that's the really good part, because whether it's BLM, Forest Service, we've hamstrung the process to where nobody can do anything, no matter what your value is.
Real quick question is T-Rex kind of hit on it, is like, not including, Browns Park. Name kind of suggests that you're potentially wanting to include more area, because otherwise the name might just be like headwaters of the Yampa or headwaters of the Elk and Little Snake. So my question is do you guys anticipate kind of broadening the scope of the watersheds you're looking at?
Without speaking out of turn, I would expect we'd be more willing to help other groups in the headwaters of the Colorado to form their own that are place-based and, you know, can better speak to the issues in those communities. And, you know, we wouldn't want to come over to Browns Park and try to claim to know what they're dealing with in their landscape. And so I think that we'd like to be a model, and that's something like Pat O'Toole's always saying, like, this should be a model forest for the Colorado River, you know, entire system. That's kind of the goal, is show people that things can be done and you can meet those multiple objectives and, you know, live together, rather than, it's not even tearing each other apart because we just fight and nothing happens, you know, nothing at all. And so getting something done together would be a better way to go.
Yeah, kudos, this is, I mean, awesome. I mean, it was well aware, we're trying to do the same thing down in our neck of the woods.
I spoke with Callie.
And I'm just like blown away how far you guys are way ahead. I mean, we're at a stumbling block. But my question is going back to the NFF. Were they funding for the coordinator position? Is that, you said NFF was involved for funding purposes and WLA was for staffing.
And geez, so the NFF as the fiscal sponsor came into play.
Fiscal sponsor. I'm sorry. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're kind of managing grants and all of that.
All right. Because of the organization structure. Okay. All right.
They're 2 of the 5 executive committee members. Pat, myself, and then Tim Redmond, county commissioner. And
So you guys can do
awesome.
I'm just curious, will you get the word out through the Roundtable website when your meeting date, time, place?
I think that would be appropriate. We can do that. Yeah.
What do you think? Sorry, Patrick, where do you think that meeting will be?
We did decide, is it going to be at the Craig BLM?
the last thing I heard was that we thought Craig might be the most centrally located.
Yeah.
I mean, centrally located would be up by Bears Ears and that.
I think
pick some place and
Top of Black Mountain?
Yeah, top of Black Mountain. No, I think probably I don't think the decision's made, but it's probably leaning towards Craig.
And the last meeting we had in person was at the BLM office, and we asked them if it'd be all right for us to meet there, and they said that'd be fine. So that's kind of where we're leaning. If it's in Craig, it'd probably be at that Little Snake field office there.
We'll be sure and get the word out to the round.
In general, though, we've been trying to go to all the areas. We've been doing Laramie, Steamboat, Craig. We haven't done a bags one yet, and we don't have not a lot of places to get together. No one knows where it is, so we didn't want to get lost on the way.
So why Laramie? Laramie?
The Forest Service.
That's where the office is at?
Yeah. But we've been, you know, as the group develops, we'll keep it centered towards where the stakeholders are. A lot of that's going to be along the Yampa River corridor for the most part, in Saratoga at times.
You can reach out to other stakeholders. I mean, I'm my Rock County Conservation District hat on. This is the first time I've heard of this as a conservation district. You know, that's looking at the Yampa and the Elk and getting the stakeholders out there for the ag guys. You know, it's the first time I've heard of it. Yeah. So I know you gotta start somewhere, but I mean that's my other concern. It's a great thing that we're doing there, but it's also a big chunk of land, and we know that the YWG was large with trying to do the whole Yampa. We ran into a lot of things that way. So, you know, knowing some of the lower elk people and that, you know, you've got a long ways to go for stakeholders with that.
This is our first effort to reach out to the public, and we thought it was great because people like you were here and can share the message out. But that's what our initial funding is all to help us do that, and to be able to make sure that we get the right folks informed and invited.
stakeholder will be one of those key committees that we set up. You all have an opportunity to take this home and share it with your groups so that we can then create that spider web of information.
Yeah, I mean, because, you know, we got the virtual fence stuff going on. There's the grants there for a while. Yeah. GCLI grant to continue that. We're looking at South Route, but, you know, we need some more up north, so. Earlier the better.
So anybody online have a question for Jonathan?
I just had a quick question, Jonathan. Have you been in touch with anybody from CWCB on Chris Sturm or any of his team members? I think this is something they'd be super interested in, just kind of knowing more info about and seeing if it might fit some of our grant programs, or, you know, if they might be involved in some way.
Yeah, not yet, Jeff. We've had that wildfire ready. What is the watersheds on our radar, and to talk with Chris about that, but we haven't got there yet.
Probably through
Yeah.
Kelly Romero, he's a big advocate for this project.
Okay, yeah, great. I just, you know, I know you guys are just kind of in the forming phase, so you don't have any specific projects identified yet, but you know, it seems like something right up Chris's alley, and his team might want to be involved in some levels.
I said that to Jonathan about 20 minutes ago.
Perfect. You know, Ken, you always got our back, so you know.
Yeah, I know.
You could deliver my updates for me.
No, I can't.
But, you know, in response to both Jeff and what Patrick was saying, we've been trying really hard not to get the cart in front of the horse on this thing, but it kind of just got to the time you just got to smack that thing on the butt and see what's tied up, you know, and that's kind of where we're at right now. And that's why we want to take this opportunity to share it with you all, knowing that you're engaged in those networks and can start getting that word out, and just know that we'll be following behind you with more outreach here very shortly. I'm sure after our meeting on Friday, that'll be kind of the next step, is how we're getting that word out with a broader kind of reach to it all.
Was this presentation a good way to start?
Was it?
I guess I'm saying, is it okay to pass it on?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would say that this is in the public record here. So
In our packet, yeah.
Yep.
Right now, our webpage is being hosted by NF.
There wasn't any either WLA or NFF, but we haven't.
But there's no reason we couldn't share something here as well.
Yeah. So yeah, you'd be more than welcome to share this with those folks and give them my contact.
Council.
Steve, we're at 30 minutes.
Yeah. So, all right. Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
All right. So we're down to item 9, action items. First up is the grant committee.
Patrick, what up? Pull that. Please. He's while he's doing that, I want to let everyone know at the last grants meeting, I was chosen to be the chair. And then I found out as chair, I got to be on the executive committee. So I'm thinking I just added 2 more meetings to my life. So, but the good news is Steve's here and he's the vice chair, and big shoes to fill. Steve's done a great job, and I want to acknowledge Steve in public here that, you know, what he's done. He's created a good template and a format on how we present all this information. And last but not least, if I speak out of turn, Steve will correct me, which is good. So we're going to do an update tonight. We've got fairly full item list, if you will, 5 action items. Patrick, if you want to go to the next slide. Here's the agenda. We're going to talk about the updated Yampa White Green grant guidelines. We're then going to talk about the letter of support guidelines. And then we'll move into a request from the Norville Ditch folks to change the grantee to the Community Ag Alliance. And then we got two grants to talk about. Well, presentations from the 8 Lion Ranch on irrigation infrastructure improvements, and then the nickel diversion upgrade. There was a grants folder in the Basin Roundtable meeting folder that had a lot of information in it. Hopefully everyone had a chance to look at that. Included in that was the minutes from the grants meeting, which was last held on December 13th. And then the summaries of the two grants that we'll hear the presentations for tonight. Next slide, Patrick. The first thing I want to talk about is the updated Yampa White Green grant guidelines. These were last done in May of 2022. And there was quite a bit of discussion at the October grants meeting by the committee about some changes to essentially get them more in alignment with the new CWCB grant guidelines, which came out in January of 23. But really, I don't want to talk about the whole document. I just want to hit some of the highlights, and then we can quickly open it up for questions. As I said, most of it was clarification, and just to be more specific and more detailed, the deadlines are much more easier to understand. We removed the reference to the Colorado, the Community Ag Alliance project coordinator, since we're doing that in-house now, if you will. As opposed to 20-minute presentations, we're going to do 15-minute presentations. Again, in an effort to streamline some of these meetings, so the grant presentations will be 15 minutes. Steve created this document, and part of the document is a nice color-coded table, which is much easier to read. And I think it's going to help the applicants kind of work through the process, if you will. So what we're looking for tonight is an approval of the updated guidelines. Then we will put those on the website moving forward. So with that, I'll open up to any questions and discussions, and then I'll turn it over to Steve to go with the vote administration. Yes.
So the one question I'll have, and this will be more back to whatever the CBC and the CB rules is. Any of those rules eroded, changed the ability for us to fund a single-use project like single agriculture? From the time 1177 was created, it's a provision on a single project, single use deal, and there's always been an attempt to erode that and say that you would only fund multiple beneficial projects. That's been a long-standing concern of mine. So has any of that changed?
No, so yes and no.
Okay.
I'll have to say it. So the big change in January 2023 was to bring the state funds back in for drought and infrastructure projects. One of the things that they have put in there, and that's what's leading us to item number 3 on Frank's agenda, is you have to be a ditch company to get a grant. You as an individual cannot go in and get a grant at this point. You have to be somebody insurable and provide all the insurances for CWCB, for the financial folks at the state.
But as long as you'll do the insurance,
yes,
you don't have to go become a ditch company.
Yes, but the individual, it no longer says individual in the grant guidelines. In CWCB grant guidelines, it no longer says and individual.
Okay, all right, so I got to vote no on this deal, because I won't support the change of that. I get that I'm with this.
Oh, it's not in our guidelines.
No, I know.
It's not in our, it's in theirs, and we don't get to vote on it.
No, but
We don't have to make these up.
but that's you all's responsibility as IDC members to not let.
I do
me
know
do that.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, I don't
Jeff
know
just
that.
heard that.
That came out of the CWCB meeting, and they put those.
This is not of a surprise to me. They've been trying to pull this stuff from day one. And I fought it all the time I was there, and that's the reason I'm bringing it up, because I knew they'd do just this.
Yeah.
All right.
So our, I mean, as Frank said, our guideline document hadn't been updated in a couple of years. Really didn't talk about the state funding pool money, and still had a lot of verbiage in there from CAA and whatever. So it's like, let's just do it. Let's just rewrite it, try to get it up to date, but we don't put any of that forward in our guidelines, because that's in the CWCB stuff. Now, I'm not gonna echo theirs, because some of it I don't agree with.
There, exactly. Okay. So long as we're not echoing it.
We're not, we are definitely not.
Good, okay.
We're not approving that document.
No.
Approving our.
Okay. As long as we weren't supporting that in this, then
No, absolutely.
that's what I needed to hear. Now I can vote yes.
Any
Any-
other questions? Go ahead. Christine, sorry.
Oh, any other questions? If not, I'd take a motion to approve. Can you turn that?
Better move to the approval of the updated Yampa Wet Green grant guidelines.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Madison Muxworthy, seconds. Okay. So I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this?
Is there any? Can we see any path forward to reconciling?
Yeah,
There's a problem.
you and Ken go back to the IPC at your next meeting and rewrite those state rules, because, and the reason I'm very passionate about this, Jim Isgar, Senator Jim Isgar, is Democrat from Hesper's. He wrote 1177 specifically so that a single owner, single use project could get state funding. Because beneficial use is putting water to use. And Doug and I respectfully have had a long-standing discussion or disagreement, Doug Mulder and I, in the context of most people, when we talk about tax dollars and whatnot, they want to say, well, it's got to have a public benefit, public access, public, more than one person benefits from this stuff. And Jim Isgar was adamant when he passed that legislation. We're putting water to beneficial use with this deal, and that means a single, funding a reservoir, funding a head gate, that qualifies. And there's been a steady attempt from the beginning to erode that. And I just got to stand up for Jim, because Jim's no longer alive and he can't stand up for us.
Yep. Doug Monger, your hand's raised.
So real quickly, I didn't have any comments on the grant itself, but I was reading through these things and thinking about it a little bit, and friendly, just a friendly edit might be, for the people that are filling these things out new and from fresh. I don't believe there's any grants out there that CWCB has that are not reimbursable grants. So you have to front the money up front. And so I just think it might be a good thing to have an advisory on the front top part of our grant application saying these are reimbursable grants, that people would know that they have to have a funding source. If they're going to need $250,000, they better come up with a way to spend $250,000 somehow and then get it reimbursed. So that was my only comment. I don't have any comments about the application. You guys did a great job.
Okay, yeah, they actually spell that out pretty well, Doug, in the CWCB Exhibit A and Exhibit B. They spell that out pretty clearly, but.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor of adopting these grant guidelines, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed, nay? Okay,
All right, the next item that we want to ask for approval from the roundtable tonight is the letter of support guidelines. And I do want to disclose that this letter of support draft was written by Steve, and we did talk at length at the grants committee meeting in December, and all the committee members had a chance to comment on it. So it was vetted pretty well, but the main reason for this document was there was a lot of discussion at the last Basin Roundtable meeting on how we administer, how we grant, how we give people letters of support. And what we determined was that we need a process to do this. And so what we've developed is a guideline, if you will, that really provides an option, a couple options for someone that's asking the Basin Roundtable for a letter of support. Now, letters of support are always given for grants that are approved through this Basin Roundtable. So that's a given, that letter of support. These would be letters of support for other CWCB grants, like a water plan grant that doesn't come through this committee. They could be a letter of support, as an example, for this initiative we just heard about. So we wanted an opportunity to come up with a plan so people knew what the process was. So what we had determined was two options, and the first option was the one that's preferred, and basically what that would mean is that letter of support and presentation would start at the grants committee level, go through the grants committee, and then get, if approved or not approved, come to the Basin Roundtable, and just kind of streamline the process. The second option would be if an applicant did not get in front of the grants committee, just come to the Basin Roundtable, provide a little bit longer presentation, and then ask for a letter of support. So what this document does is essentially just in a page and a half, line out that process so we can get that out to anyone that's interested in a letter of support, post on the website, etc. So that's a very quick synopsis of the letter of support. So I'll open up for questions now.
So I'll just make a comment. I mean, we talked about this at length at our last meeting, and we definitely heard the members of this board that they want to see presentations and they want to understand projects for any letter of support that we send out. So that's why we drafted this.
And it's very, very specific. Thanks for Rebecca pointing this out. All letters of support have to have Basin Roundtable approval. So they can't get approved at the grants committee.
Move to approve. Okay, T. Wright moves to approve. Do I have a second? Okay, Mike Campbell seconds. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the letter of support guidelines? Hearing none, all in favor of adopting the letter of support guidelines as written, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All opposed, say nay. The ayes have it.
The next item is a request for an approval to switch applicant / grantee from the Novo Ditch Company to the Community Ag Alliance. And this one came about, let me back up. This grant was approved last May for some diversion improvements. And fast forward, what we found out from Ben Wade, who was a project manager with WSRF, the CWC, is that ditch company no longer had their Colorado LLC license, couldn't get insurance, et cetera, et cetera. So they couldn't go to contracting. So what Ben Wade suggested is switching the grantee to the Community Ag Alliance. And we do have a letter from the ditch company owners that was in the packet, basically agreeing to this, and they were accepting that so we can get this project moved forward. And Community Ag Alliance has agreed, so they're on board too. So what we're looking for tonight is a motion and a second to change the grantee from Norvell to the Ag Alliance. If that gets approved, Steve as chair would write a letter to the CWCB that we approved it. It would go in front of the CWCB as part of their consent agenda at the next meeting, and then they can go to contract. So that's the question in front of the Basin Roundtable tonight.
So Frank, the Norville Ditch Company's gonna continue to do business. It's just that they can't do business with WSRF.
That's our understanding, yes.
So back in like 2005, 2006, they somehow stuck on the abandonment. So they formed a ditch company at that time. When they got off the abandonment list and all the legal stuff was over, they quit paying their $10 fee to the Secretary of State. So they lost their LLC. So now to go back and get that and to get insurance and everything else is almost an insurmountable task. Yeah, it is, and there's different ditch owners as well.
And Ag Alliance is simply gonna do the contract in the end.
Yeah, so they're,
Or basically a fiscal agent like the
Yeah, they're-
Colorado River District would be
yeah,
for the.
they're gonna be the fiscal agent. In the grant folder that's on the website is a letter that we got today, signed by all of the Norville ditch owners that said, yes, we would like to switch to CAA being the fiscal agent.
So that's not in our package.
No, I just got it,
Just got it
today, Jeff. It's on
No wonder I
the,
can't.
it's on the website.
It's on the website.
Move to approve. Do you have a quick question?
Oh.
I guess a couple questions. First of all, it probably doesn't matter, but I'm not gonna vote on it because I'm. But, so this comes with a question is, some other people I'm working with, they're having trouble getting insurance as well on their projects. It's, the WSRF requires it. How does CAA get the insurance, or who's carrying the insurance?
Well,
It's liability insurance for the state.
Yes.
Liability for construction and on the site still falls on the owners.
on the contractors. So CAA is gonna contract with state. Contractors are gonna contract with CAA.
So the projects I worked on before is like the landowner had to carry the insurance. Like they had to have liability for the state, sign off, like indemnify the state, basically. This has all been worked out.
Yeah.
As
Well, we believe so.
Yeah.
Well, so the whole, everything that's going on today, the problem is that the grant never got awarded because they can't award it to a company that no longer exists. So they can't just change grantees. They have a form for that. It's a 5-minute change to fill the form out. You change grantees, they can't do that because the contract never got awarded. So this is the method that they've chosen to try to move forward with.
Okay, so I guess it all comes back to is, wouldn't it be easier if they just reformed? I'm probably, like I said, I'm not voting, but I just don't want to get down the road to where we run into another snag. I mean, have you talked to him about reforming?
And yes, it would be a harder process than it is.
Okay. So
But let's don't lose the project, but yeah, this is my concern, back to the state issue. You can't keep enough rules on this, and then people can't do the good work this was intended. Yeah, but that's a different conversation.
Do you have a question, Ken?
I just gotta kick in one thing on this, so maybe they'll ditch one through this exact same problem. one of the reasons that we actually went with TNC and some of those was if Mayville ditch makes over $100,000, it kicks you out of the exemption from audit that the state requires you. And these grants will throw you into that. And so using somebody else as a fiscal agent on these projects keeps you from having to do all the government crap you gotta do with a lot of money. So it's such a, there's a lot of crap.
Oh, Chris, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So since the grant was never awarded in the first place, is this gonna have to go back to be awarded again? It's not just a simple transfer.
So it's been, so the CWCB approved it when they went to, cut the PO for it. They couldn't do that. So we typically, Alden and I have written like 1-page summaries of, hey, this was approved at this meeting, we had a quorum, and it looks a lot like the grant summaries that Frank wrote out. So we've written one of those. If we approve this change of grantee tonight, I'll write another one tomorrow. On the 19th of this month, they can put it in the consent agenda for this month's meeting and just do a change of grantee with all the documentation that Patrick has provided.
And that simple letter will take care of all the legal ramifications and all that.
That's the story I received Monday.
I can chime in here.
All will be well.
Okay.
I can chime in here a little bit. Steve's exactly right. So basically what we try to do is just a normal change of grantee, but our procurement staff has turned over recently. And so they basically are just advising us to do it this way. Their kind of preferred change of grantee, because it has never been contracted. They want this kind of process. This is a process Ben and I talked about a lot to try to reduce the burden on you all. You know, we know that CAA can contract with the state. You know, they have a few grants with us and contracts with us. So I think this is the path of least resistance. And because it's already been approved by the board, we don't have that kind of 3-month review period that we have for all of our other WSRF requests. So we're gonna get this on the agenda in January at the end of this month. And that should, because the board's already reviewed it, you know, it'll be a consent agenda item, and that should pave the way for contracting with CAA, and just to kind of get around some of those issues that you all are talking about. This is not a change necessarily. You know, our grantees have always had to be able to contract with the state and provide insurance. The shift is the type of insurance that's acceptable and what qualifies for a waiver and all of that stuff. With those changes to the procurement staff, you know, we are basically having to do this a little bit differently. But you know, these grantees have always had to contract with the state. And so it's the same process. It's maybe just a different type of insurance, I think, is what qualifies. And the barometer for a waiver is a little bit more, I guess. So hopefully this is smooth and, you know, is the path of least resistance. Ben and I think it'll go over pretty smoothly.
Runner moves approval of the designating the Community Ag Alliance as the grantee applicant to contract with the state on behalf of the Norvell Ditch Infrastructure Improvement Project.
Sorry. Okay, to your right, seconds. Any other discussion?
Yes, discussion.
Oh, yes.
Sorry, I have had my hand up, but it's hard to weigh in sometimes. I'm just trying to understand a little bit better. It was hard to hear you guys in the initial portion of the discussion. And I just want to make sure that I'm clear on the Community Ag Alliance's role in this. So as I'm understanding it, they would just be the fiscal agent and they would have no actual financial vested interest in the project. Is that correct?
Yes.
Patrick shaking his head, yes.
Okay, and then
Not on this one.
I guess my second question is, are they going to receive any monetary compensation for the work that is being done to administer the grant?
Not on this one.
No.
Huh. Okay, it would seem kind of standard that they would.
Because it's already been budgeted and approved, there's no room to change the approval.
Okay.
We can't take administrative costs out of this.
But your board approved it anyway.
The board approved it anyway,
In
so.
my mind, I'm okay. You guys got two attorneys on that board anyway, but we've already went through this conversation.
Did we get all?
Did you get it? Did you get everything answered, Sonia?
Yeah, I heard the comments. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion in a second to approve the change of grantee / applicant from Norvell Ditch Owners to Community Ag Alliance. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed- All opposed, say nay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Patrick, you want to go to the next slide for me, please? Before we move into the two grant presentations, I wanted to just provide a quick update on kind of where we're at in the grant cycle funding for 2024. The funding amount that the BRT approved was $400,000, which is shown in the blue there at the very bottom. We started in October with about $532,000 in our Basin account. If both of these grants tonight get approved, and I've got those numbers in there, actually Steve did this for us, that would be a reduction in our balance of about $33,780. So we would end this cycle, the second cycle, if you will, with a balance of $497,000. So that, of course, is contingent upon getting these approvals tonight on these two grants. Any questions on that?
Not a lot of money at stake then, but.
Not with these two.
Not tonight.
For us. For us, yeah. Next slide. So with that said, we'll move into the first grant presentation tonight, which is the Ain't Lion Ranch irrigation infrastructure.
He just got appointed to the special.
This one will be presented by Megan and maybe John. I'm not sure if John's on that tonight. We did include a number of documents in the grant folder on the BRT site. Of course, the Yampa White Green grant application, the CWCB grant application, which includes Schedule A, which is the scope of work, and then Schedule B, which is the budget. The grant summary is in there along with the grant meeting minutes from the last grant meeting on December 13th. So if there's no questions, what I'd like to do is turn it over to Megan and have her provide an overview of the grant, and then we would open it up for questions of the BRT. So Megan, are you ready?
Hi, yep. How are you?
We got your 3 slides, Megan, and Patrick will run those slides for you. Okay.
All right, sounds good. I know a lot of you, but some of you I don't. I'm Megan Knott. I'm the Director of Stewardship with Colorado Cattlemen's Agricultural Land Trust. I'm in the Steamboat Springs office, and my husband and I have a ranch along Trout Creek and South Route. So I know some of you that way too. Anyway, so Colorado Cattlemen's Ag Land Trust, I'm sure most of you know kind of what we work on and what we do, but basically we're working on protecting productive working landscapes throughout Colorado for all the benefits that those provide to the state of Colorado through the environmental externalities and improvements to the local economies through agriculture and infusions of cash into these rural communities through conservation easements. We hold now close to 800,000 acres. Sorry, a little cat fight there. We hold close to 800,000 acres across the state of Colorado, and a lot of those have irrigated agriculture on them. In Northwest Colorado, it's about 140,000 acres that we have in conservation easement. And as you can imagine, in the Northwest part of the state, a lot heavier percentage of that is irrigated. So we have been working on the Ainsline Ranch, which is just upstream of Elkhead Reservoir. And we're working on doing a conservation easement here. We've gotten this conservation easement funded through Routt County. They have a purchase of development rights program where they purchase a portion of the conservation easement and the other portion is donated. So as part of the due diligence in doing this conservation easement, we want to assure that the water rights that are used to irrigate some of this property can be protected. And for that, we need to make sure that we can install proper measuring devices. So this grant really overall is just an ask for the ability to put in measuring devices on 2 ditches. So that's 2 measuring flumes and a pump system. So the ranch is 413 acres, like I said, upstream from Elkhead. And yeah, so I don't know if many of you have read conservation easements or are super familiar, but they do allow for flexibility in the water rights, like in-stream flows, and that kind of stuff. But the water stays tied to the land and it has to remain available for agriculture. It can't be abandoned. So as part of our due diligence, if we get this grant and are able to install these, then we can kind of get accurate measurements of how much water the rancher here, who's Jolene Lyon, how much she's actually using, and we can get that documentation, and then we can kind of do due diligence to get this project forward. You can go to the next slide. So here's the 3 water rights. It's 2 ditch rights and a pump diversion. And here's kind of a map of where all these the irrigated lands are on the property, all along Elkhead Creek. The 2 ditches come in from either side. I mean, it's a little bit hard to see. It's the pink and the orange right there, which that would be the installation of the measuring flumes would be in that point. And the green points are the pump diversion. The way this is decreed, Jolene can use one of these at a time, but she can use all 5, but it's only measured for at one point at any one time. So she needs to try to pump really as much water as she can from that one point. It's not cumulative. So what we're planning on doing is getting her some gated pipes and a pump to feed into it and kind of the measuring devices you need from that pump. I'm not an engineer, but we did get NRCS out here. Vance Fulton was kind enough to come and walk the property with us and sort of design a system for Jolene. And so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get these measuring devices in. I think maybe there's one more slide here. Might be the budget. Yeah. So what we're asking this Basin Roundtable to help with is the cost of some of these measuring devices. We're asking for $9,000. And then Cattlemen's is through we have this agriculture resiliency fund that we've recently started. So we're going to give Jolene 5,000 of that. And that's going to get her pretty close to being able to do this project. On On top of that, Doug, I think you were talking about this being a reimbursement grant. We totally understand that. We also have a loan fund through Cattlemen's that Jolene has been using because conservation easements are expensive to do. So she's already taken a loan from CCALT to do the conservation easement. And so we're going to loan her the money to do this project too. And then this grant will reimburse us for that 9,000. And then the 5,000 that we're granting her is a grant that she doesn't have to pay back. And this doesn't include the cost of the gated pipe here. It was my understanding that you guys don't want to see like infield improvements. So this is really just the measuring project that you guys see the budget for ahead of you. The gated pipe, Jolene will have to purchase on her own, but she will be getting some funding in from completing the conservation easement. So she can then further pay back the loan she has from us when that closes. Routt County is giving her $208,000 for the bargain sale of the conservation easement. And the way that works is that's 50% of what we think the easement value will be. And then she gets tax incentives from the state of Colorado. Those are tax credits, and then she can sell those. So, you know, she'll net a few $100,000 here, and that will be enough for her to improve her irrigation system. And her husband have no heir, so they'll probably just make some additional improvements to the property. And she just wants it protected for the future, for when, you know, we're all not here, this will remain in place. So I think that kind of sums it up. It's a pretty straightforward project. It's small. I know it's not a lot of irrigated acres, but the conservation easement aspect of this really helps. And the water part's really critical to that, because if we don't get the water shored up, there was a question during the committee, can we still do the conservation easement? That answer is yes, but the conservation values associated with that easement change because it's not going to be guaranteed to be irrigated land. And so we'd probably have to go back to Routt County and you know, represent the project because it's different. We're not going to be presenting them with an irrigated ag project. Yeah, I think that was my last slide. So that's about all I have, and I'm happy to take some questions or whatever your guys' next steps are here.
Again, thank you so much. I think we can certainly open it up to questions from the members here.
Frank, my questions, I'm very supportive of this, Megan, but what's the in-kind or the cash match? I'm not finding that on this sheet.
Oh, okay.
You're asking for 9,000 from us, and how much is
so okay, so Cattlemen's is going to give 5,000, and that's cash match. And then there's in kind, which is the rest, which is well, I guess that I don't quite know how you count it, but our in kind is going to be 10 hours of admin time in this budget. And then also the rest of the difference, so 9 and 5, that's 14. Jolene Lyon is going to pay for the rest, so it's her cash into it.
and
So her match is $5,995 from Jolene. Right? It's on.
Oh, that's the piece down here.
Yeah, it's on our. If you go to our Yampa white green roundtable, that's what it's called.
That's what I was trying to find. And just so I understand this measure device piece, and we gave Upper Yampa some monies, I recall. How
they're not in Upper Yampa's boundary.
They're not in.
We asked that question.
I just wanted to understand the interplay.
Yeah.
Good. No, I'm very supportive.
Come to our grant.
Well,
Yeah. So just for everybody's sake, for clarity, the grant request,
They're already asking for, well, Frank's got it on the next slide.
yeah,
The motion's coming up.
what is it?
$9,000.
It's $9,000.
$9,000.
Yes.
Well, I think you had a question.
Yeah, that seems pretty light. I just I'm supportive of it too, obviously, but I think they're gonna be having to put in a lot more money than what they're thinking, because I don't think this includes installation costs. And we're probably gonna have to go with some other equipment too, like some maybe bigger flumes. But, so I just want to throw that out there that they're asking for very little with what they're probably gonna be putting into this.
So, and I know it includes installation costs, which we just kind of figured as Jolene's labor. I mean, she's a rancher, she's capable of installing the measuring flumes and has, you know, she has equipment out there. So we kind of just assumed that that would be her, like, sort of in kind, but I didn't put it in the budget at all.
I move that we approve the grant request for $9,000.
Okay, Jeff, second, and Mike Campbell, or Jeff made the motion, Mike Campbell made the second. Any other discussion? Anybody online have a question? I don't see anybody. So, so I have a motion and a second to approve this grant for $9,000 in the Yampa White Green Basin WRSF funds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say
Aye.
nay. Oh, all opposed, say nay. Okay, the ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Appreciate it. The next presentation will be, I believe, from Patrick. And maybe Ben Bell will be chiming in. This is the nickel diversion upgrade with the Community Ag Alliance. Again, quite a few documents were included in that grant folder, including the, of course, the Yampa White Green application, CWC grant application schedules A and B. I put together a grant summary of the grant and, of course, the December 13th grant meeting minutes. This one, just so everyone knows, for the presentation, they are asking the Basin Roundtable for $24,780. And then they're going to be asking, if approved from the state, $161,070. So those are the asks, if you will. I think with that said, we'll let Patrick, if you're going to take the lead on this, or Ben.
I'm gonna take the lead. Ben Bell's our engineer on this project. Ben Bell's been working with us for a while on the Bear River. Quickly, how Community Agricultural Alliance got to this: we've been working with the Integrated Water Management Plan since 2018, and we had a lot of ag outreach and stakeholder questions. And actually, the Novell ditch that you guys just pre-approved was Jenna Hinkmeyer's work as one of the ag water coordinators that we had there for a while to pull that project together. We've been working with Jeff Klinke is a contractor we have that's been working on the Bear River. The Bear River is the river above Yampa, right? So the confluence of Phillips Creek up to Stillwater is the Bear River, which is the headwaters of the Yampa River. So what we're working on is the nickel ditch diversion. It's the last ditch on the Bear River. It is generally the call point on the Bear River. They're using a push-up dam, so they're going in yearly to put it in and take it out yearly because of the, you take it out in the winter time. So they're always getting there and doing that. Again, it's like the call point of the river. It's one of our higher priorities that we've worked with when we're doing the whole diversion assessments in the basin. Again, Bear River is one of the few rivers in the basin that's always on call. I think T-Right has the other one. And now the White's always going to be on call, except for 3 months. So the Bear was actually put on call in May this year, which is, as much water as we had, it was on call in May. So it is highly over appropriated. So there's a lot of work to do on the Bear, hear about the Bear River projects that we get to the point here. Right there. So the goal of the project is we're gonna put in a stop log diversion. Mel is junior, is our engineer on this. He's got his own company now. And we are designing this diversion to be able to pass water. There's an in-stream flow right on the Bear River, so if somebody wants to take the torch and figure out how to get water, but in-stream flow right, we have to figure out how to get that water past it. We do it now. And so we are gonna be working on that design if we had to. DWR 1-2, they should get that water.
Senior to the diversion.
It's not senior to the diversion, but this is also the only place in the Yampa Basin where you can, besides Elkhead, this is where all the water is sold and bought in the Yampa River. The Yampa Basin is the river. The Stillwater Reservoir, which is owned by the agricultural company, and we have Yampa, which is owned by the Yampa Water Conservancy District. So somebody could go in there and lease water.
In-stream flow.
But it does, but this diversion will allow the water right to be taken and then let in-stream flow above the water right go by.
Yes.
That's what they're designing.
We have
That's what it is.
municipal water stored as well. So we have to be able to get that.
I see.
And still function as the call point on, and the main thing is still gotta function as the call point on the Bear River. It's historically, usually, it starts swinging up and down there a little bit in the end, but this is it. This is where DWR opens up the whole head gate and they make sure all that water goes out that ditch. Anything else, Ben, you wanna add on this?
I don't think so, Patrick. I think you've done a good job, and if there's any questions, I can be here to support you.
Use my roller mouse. So again, what we were asking for here is we're asking for 185,000 total, 850 total WSRF funds, 161,000 from the state, 24 something change on the roundtable for the diversion construction. Community Ag Alliance is going to be the fiscal agent, and we are going to take 10% on this project. As we dip our toes into it, the board is it's okay. Sure. Understood everything I'm being signed up for right now.
No, we know you don't.
We do have funds that we already got from the Upper Yampa Water Conservancy District and TNC to cover the final design. So final design is part of our match, as well as some of my hours. I'll throw in some match in. The ditch owners has 5,000. And also under knowledge, as the way we're in the world we live in today, we can say it's going to cost this much, we know it's going to cost more, so they're going to be on the hook to cover up that other cost. So that's what we're here to ask for. This is part of a bigger Bear River project. Like I said, we've been working on the Bear River for a while with Jeff. There's 12 diversions that we can go in there and do and look at and get upgraded. Part of the discussion, if you read the notes on there, is bringing automation into the Bear River, right? Last year, you guys approved Lima 3 grant for DWR to go in there and put Lima 3. We're looking at how to get automation into that Lima 3 now. Bringing Division of Water Resources, not Division of Water Resources, we're going to bring Bureau of Recreation, bringing automation into it. We're looking at trying to find the right head gates to do that demonstration on project that resources would like. So, questions?
Just, could you take just 1 minute and give everybody a little better picture of the amount of infrastructure needs there are on the Bear River? This is kind of a beginning of a really large project.
This is really beginning much. I mean, like I said, there's 12 diversions on the Bear River. The Nickel is the lowest one. The Bird is next, and that's what we're going to probably model a lot of our diversions on. It's a stop log diversion that works really well. But it's all up and down there. We're looking at doing some automation on the Woolly. That diversion has to be looked at. The Lindsay diversion is just the log that's across the river. I mean, all up and down that entire section. Each of those diversions need to be looked at. The Bear River is one of the few rivers in the state where it actually freezes from the bottom up as you get higher up in the Bear River. So that has to be considered when you start looking at these diversion constructions. Yeah, there's a lot of work. Again, it's 2 or 3 individuals that have a ditch. There is no ditch companies. There will never be a ditch company. It doesn't make sense to do a ditch company.
It's just it's a nightmare for the Division of Water Resources because the diurnal flow on this thing in the spring is crazy. It's like you've got to be out there adjusting stuff constantly. So they're very supportive of getting this project completed someday.
And is this, these are principally ag, right?
Yeah.
All totally ag.
It's all total ag, all up and down except for the end of the municipality, right?
We sell water we store water for municipal use, but we sell water but we release water for ag.
So, I did have a question or a comment to, during the grant meeting, I thought I heard that this is a channel spanning diversion, but I don't think it's been brought up here. Maybe I misheard, but aren't you guys designing this diversion to also allow for fish passage?
Fish passage could be possible with
Possible.
that.
So I mean,
with that.
there's some multiple benefits here.
There's multiple benefits, right? There's multiple benefits. We're trying to get, if somebody wants to lease the water to student stream flow and not release, will have the ability to pass the fish.
Any other questions? Patrick, if you want to scroll to the next slide. There you go. As I discussed, the grants committee is recommending approval of this grant for the $24,780. And your motion is up there, and I'll let Steve take it from there.
Move to approve.
Okay, so D. Wright approves recommending this grant request for $24,780 of Basin Roundtable funds and $161,070 of statewide funds. A second from Chris Collins. Have a motion and a second. Any other conversation?
You go, boys.
Hearing none. All in favor of approving this grant request, say aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Okay, all opposed, say nay. Okay, the ayes have it.
The one thing that I'd ask is this goes back to the big picture part of Kim. I'm very supportive of it. This is logically the whole process that we've gone through. But in what we're going to be doing, we got to make sure that we're kind of figuring out funds get distributed within the basin. And so my point is, this is just the start. You got saying we're going to have a lot of work up there. And so however, to look at how our monies are coming in and whatnot, can somewhere along in this line, we begin to get a, we know we're going to have X amount of needs and how we think monies are going to come in and just so that all the points of the empire get.
So April, before she left, did that, broke down all of our grants.
Okay.
Or you did. Somebody did.
Huh? Somebody did it. I thought it was April. So it's been done several years ago, but not in the last 3, I would guess.
What you guys really saying is, let's just make sure we don't spend all our money in one corner.
Well, and I got no problem. I want to solve the problems in the Bears. I mean, this is exactly why we did the assessment and, and everything. We want to be able to do these kind of things. But at the same point in time, we have to be mindful. We know that some years we weren't going to get in.
Yeah.
Well,
no.
But yeah,
spread money between the basin.
If we do, I'm not aware of it.
We had some
On
conversations.
the grant. Yeah, we had some conversations around it.
And really the point I'm asking for is let's kind of begin to budget. We know with what we're doing now, we're gonna have a bunch of needs coming. I'm very happy to, support money. We just gotta make sure we're gonna have money for the other needs.
Yeah.
That's the grants committee update. Our next meeting is scheduled for the 14th of February. And then the next application date for people that are interested in grants, I
That
believe
must
is
have been
January
scheduled like
17th.
nobody was married.
Yeah, you been else bringing your Valentine to that, or?
I've already, Bill Badarack already hit me up. You should think about this, so that may change.
That may change.
So any questions?
I just would point out to T-Wright's concern is that we did designate 400,000 available for the cycle, and I think we're only a little over 50,000 into it with these approved. So we have some wiggle room left this year. Correct.
And T-Right, the CWC is actually very, they're trying to get us sustaining funding. Right, so we know that for the next couple of years, you have 300,000.
300,000
Guaranteed.
If we get below 450,000 on our account balance, so we're like this puts us at 497. So we have to spend another 50,000. It's a good federal government program. If you don't spend it, you don't get it.
Yeah. You know that stuff.
I can elaborate. I can elaborate on that point a little bit if it helps. So with those changes we made to WSRF in 2022, WSRF funding is no longer reliant on severance tax spillovers like it was before. So it's essentially a line item in the CWCB budget. It's still funded through severance tax, but it comes out of that first initial allocation that CWCB gets from severance tax. So we stabilized it a little bit for you all. So not only do you can count on that $300,000 a year, if for some reason CWCB gets no severance tax allocations, which doesn't normally happen, but I guess there is a world in which it could happen. We have set aside 3 years of funding for those annual basin allocations. So, what we're seeing is a stabilization of that, but we're also holding money in reserve for you all so that you don't have to do it on the basin level for 3 years of funding. I don't think we've ever seen 3 years in total of severance tax zero allocation. I know we did see 2 years of it. And so that's kind of why we built in that extra year into that reserve. But we think that we can continue to fund the roundtables at this level for the foreseeable future without relying on severance tax spillovers and things like that. Hopefully that helps a little bit, and you guys can just kind of count on that $300,000 a year as long as you're below that $750,000 cap.
Yeah. Okay, so this one's on me. I want to talk about the Yampa IWMP Project Implementation Subcommittee, CWCB IPP database updates. How's that? Go ahead, Patrick.
You could have an acronym with internal.
I know. I know it. So at the last meeting, I was invited for punishment and said, hey, I would like to take all of these projects that I have updated, that the committee helped update, and try to update the IPP database. It's the same one that Jeff's been talking about, and then add some new projects to it. So I want to talk about what does updating this database mean, because I don't think people quite understand it. I want to talk about the database updates for the
23 total projects that are currently in the BIP that had enough changes to them that it made sense for me to update them. I want to talk about 9 new IWMP projects that I added and 4 brand new identified projects that we did. And then I've got a required action summary at the end. Go ahead, Patrick.
You do that in 7 minutes.
I am. If you quit bothering me, I can. So people may misunderstand. We're not changing the 2021 BIP. But this handwriting's on the wall. It's on the printer, it's on the website. So what Jeff and the CWCB folks have come up with is a database of IPP projects that can be tracked from 2020, which is when we started looking at our last projects, to like 2027, when we'll be looking at the next BIPs projects. So we're scheduled to begin collecting projects for the IPP consideration in 2027. They'll be finalized in 2028 for that BIP update. So we're roughly at the midpoint of the 7-year cycle. So what Jeff's been talking about is taking a look at those projects. If they finish, say so. If they get modified, say so. If new ones get developed, add them to the database so that when we get to 2027, we have a good place to start from. So I'm not actually changing the 2021 BIP projects, but I'm changing the projects that were developed and voted on in 2021 to be in the BIP. And all we're doing is we're trying to track them to 2027. Go ahead, Patrick.
Steve, I just interject that Steve put in a tremendous amount of work. We used IWMP funds that were left at the end of the project to pay him to really do a thorough research with each of the projects that's been in the BIP, as well as the recommendations that came out of the IWMP. So this was kind of in the end product of the last 6-7 months of Steve's work.
Yeah.
This is what he has prepared. We spent a little over $20,000, and Steve put in a ton of time and effort to bring all this work together, and it just seemed logical to go ahead and submit it to the state as a good update of where we're at with our projects.
Yeah. So when I went through, I found these 23 projects that had changed significantly enough that I changed the description of them in the IPP database that Jeff takes care of. As you can see, 4 of them actually completed. A lot of the other ones were changes from, so they have ready, they have short-term, mid-term, and long-term projects, which for us is tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4. So some of those tiers got changed because when we're 3.5 years in, projects that were short-term or mid-term are now ready. We're actually working on quite a few tier 3 projects. So that list of projects is already in there, and I have updated them. And as I updated them, it sent an email to the project proponents that their project got updated. Because Frank called me right away. One of the very first ones I did was one of Frank's. He said, "Hey, why am I getting all these emails?" So I did that, and there was 43 projects. So there's 20 of them that I did that we updated, but they didn't mean it wasn't enough of an update to change the database. So I changed these 23, and these are all existing IPPs, and you can see the project IDs are all the ones that are in the BIP. So you can find those in the BIP. You can find them on our website, actually. Go ahead, Patrick. Okay, so on our IWMP recommendations, there was 20 of them.
I didn't put them all in, and I took out the ones that I didn't put in. But there were 9 of them that made sense. Because I thought, you know, if it's gonna be a short-term project and it's gonna be done by 2027, why put it in? Because what we're really looking for is to try to get a list of current projects in 2027 to start our process again. So I put in these 9, and you guys have recommended, you've approved the recommendations for the IWMP. So you've already approved these projects or recommendations for them going forward, but you haven't approved the projects. And then the bottom 4, soil moisture monitoring, Yampa River Wet Meadow Restoration, California Park, Yampa Valley Leafy Spurge Project Phase 2, and Yampa River Stewardship Program, which actually took, Yampa River Stewardship Program actually took IWMP recommendations 9 and 10 and built them into it. So actually 9 and 10 kind of disappear from what I'm doing, and they now appear under the stewardship. So those 2 didn't get put in. So I put these ones in, and there's a question in the database that says, are these BRT approved? And I know you guys had approved the IWMP recommendations, but you had to approve them as projects. So I thought, well, let's get approval for them. And then the 4 new ones are ones that are actively being worked on right now that are gonna probably be still running in 2027, probably in 2030. So I thought they should be added to the database. So I did add them to the database. So go ahead to the next slide, Patrick. So the recommended action summary is to recommend approval of the Yampa IWMP recommendation 7, 8, 11, and then 15 through 20 to be added to the CB BIP project database. And I've already done that. And they're out there awaiting Jeff Rodriguez's approval to add them in. And so I'm asking the membership to approve those as being submitted into the list of projects that are being developed really for the next BIP in 3 to 4 years.
So it seems like there's maybe one more step here than there needs to be. We recommended approval of them.
Well, of the recommendation, we approved the recommendations and we approved the IWMP report. These are now projects based on those recommendations. So I just thought, you know, we're gonna cover all bases, we're just gonna do it.
Correct, you accepted the IWMP report.
Yeah. Yes.
Sorry.
So your thought is to make it legal, we gotta approve the project, or to make it,
So, yeah, so the projects are out there in the database, but they won't be officially added to the database until they're approved by the Roundtable. And also, basically all it is just, I don't know if you ever was with the BIP project, but Dan Birch had this great big one spreadsheet that probably went from you to me with all the data on it. And all of those most of those are in the database. And I have just updated them, but with the IWMP recommendations that are actually being worked on, I've added them into that database because they weren't there for the BIP.
So 2 questions. It's a 2-part question, or it's 2 questions.
Yeah, so it's a 2-part question. So I'd like approval of the IWMP recommendations. And then I'd like approval of the 4 new projects to go into the database. That doesn't mean that they go in there and then in 2027, when you guys start working on the IPPs, roll that.
So So what I've got is a two-part question.
Oh,
It's my two-part question. or-
Okay.
Or two questions.
yes, a two-part question about your two-part
Yes.
question. It's kind of four parts.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and I realize because T-Wright's here, speak really close to 9 o'clock, so, you know, really mindful.
We're 3 minutes over budget.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was a mistake.
Yeah. Tom Gray, when we were doing all that bit, part of the concern was, I mean, we were trying to identify things, but you can't identify everything. And clearly some of these have popped up since.
Yes.
And so you didn't want a decision that prevented somebody from bringing a project because it wasn't identified in the bill. That's point number one.
Yes.
And then point number two, by approving this, you don't want to take away the ability to deny a project when you actually come to approve it if there's a problem. And that's my question. My real question here is, by approving the list, are we somehow pre-approving the project? Okay, and I just want to make sure that's.
No, absolutely not.
All right.
No, the projects are gonna come by us and they're gonna be looked at on the.
Got no problem making a list, got a problem if we're approving a project before we're.
Yep, we're not. Ken?
Runner recommends approval of the Yampa the Yampa integrated water management project recommendations 7, 8, 11, and 15 through 20 be added to the BIP project database.
I'll follow in seconds.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Alden,
Yeah, thanks, folks. I'm a hard time hearing what T Wright was there, and I'm forgive me if I kind of repeat. Has this been reviewed by the IWMP? Has this been reviewed by the IWMP committee for the Yampa River Basin?
yeah, so the recommendations came from the IWMP. And the IWMP project implementation committee has reviewed it and looked at everything.
And they supported it unanimously, or how did that vote turn out?
Yeah, yes, unanimously, there wasn't that.
All we're doing is adding them to the database for the BIP.
I understand. I just know there was some discussion about the IPP list on how that was formed when we did the last BIP. And this was this kind of aligned with one of my question that I had, was to make sure that there was adequate buy-in from those that were approving the list or actually recommending the list to go forward. So that was my question. Thank you.
Yes, yeah. Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of adding these recommendations to the CWCB BIP project database, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Nay? Okay, unanimous. Okay, and then the second step is the 4 new projects that were kind of stumbled over in researching all of the 70-some projects that we did. Yeah, you can put it down, Patrick. So, so those 4 projects got added into the database. They were numbered Yampa White 2023-001 through 004. And all of them are actually being worked on as we speak. And they're all multi-year projects. So,
Is that what you're after?
I'm looking for a motion. Can you go back to the motion?
You're gonna make me read it?
Yeah.
Recommended approval of, I make a motion that we recommend approval of the 4 new 2023 projects.
Yeah, 1 through 4 be added to the CWCB BIP project.
I'll second.
Okay, Madison will second. All right, any discussion on those? All right, I don't see anybody online, so all in favor of adding those 4 new projects to the BIP database, please say aye.
Aye. So
Aye.
I see in that 1 through 4, that's Yampa White, so what's the green got to do to get some projects?
Right, you gotta show up for the meetings, man. Okay, so all not in favor say nay, please. Okay, the ayes have it. All right, Aaron, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, you're on.
All right. Thank you, Steve, for giving me a few minutes here this evening. I just wanted to update you all on a few matters. First of all, as all of you are probably aware, as you know, Kevin Ryan did retire effective January 1st. And right before his retirement, Director Dan Gibbs did appoint Tracy Kozlov as the interim director. So right now, Tracy Kozlov is the acting director of the Division of Water Resources. Additionally, Dan Gibbs did announce the position for hiring as of this Monday. So January 8th, he announced the position, and people will have until January 22nd to apply for the state engineer position. So just so everyone knows that that position is being announced. On other matters, I'll go ahead, and my next item I'll cover is staffing. We do have some new staff and staffing changes that I thought I would tell everybody about. I think everybody, I had announced at one roundtable meeting, I think it's maybe the September one, I had announced that Brian Romick was appointed as our new Yampa River Operations Coordinator. So Brian's in that position. That, of course, then opened his position. He was in the lead water administrator's position. And with that vacancy, we then filled that vacancy with Sarah Myers. Sarah Myers is you're probably all of you familiar with Sarah Myers. She was the water commissioner for Water District 44. And she has now moved into that promotional position as her position isn't lead water administrator anymore. A lot of her work will be doing water commissioner work and water court work, but the title's not lead water administrator. Regardless, that was a promotion for Sarah Myers. Sarah Myers' position is now vacant, and we are in the process of filling her position. So that's a position there in the Craig area and would be out of the Craig office. Again, that's Water District 44. We hope to announce that position. It would be optimistic to say by the end of the week, but it might be as early as by the end of the week that we would be announcing that position. And that position will be open for 2 weeks again. So if anybody is aware of anyone that would be interested in applying for that position, they can. The requirements are a little bit higher for that position as far as experience goes. So anybody interested would really need to look at the requirements for that position. Then the other position, I've been talking for months now about our 2 positions that we got through the legislature. One of them was the one that Brian Romick took, which was the Yampa River Operations Coordinator position. And the other position was a lead hydro position. And the lead hydro would obviously do just that, be our lead hydro, but would also be managing our measurement rules. The person we selected for that position was a gentleman out of our Division 2 office. His name is Jacob Olson. And Jacob Olson has now moved up here. He moved up right around the Christmas time. He's living in Hayden. And so I'm really excited to have Jacob on our team. He was both a hydro for Division 2 as well as a lead water commissioner for Division 2. So again, I'm really excited to have him on our team. I think maybe that's not all of our staffing. We did just recently offer it's been changed to our administrative assistant. It used to be a technician, but it's now administrative assistant position. And we did just fill that position. Very fortunate that that person accepted our job offer. Her name is Christina Redmond, and she'll be working out of our Steamboat office. So we're getting close to being fully staffed. And the other thing I wanted to just mention to everyone is I'm very excited to announce that all of our protests have been settled in the measurement rule case. And the last stipulation was approved by the court just yesterday. So now the process will be just waiting for the judge to enter an order, making those measurement rules effective. I suspect that would probably be done if I'd be almost surprised if we won't have the measurement rules considered complete and effective a week from now, or at least by the end of next week. So again, I'm really excited about that. And it's really good timing, given the fact that we now have Jacob Olson on board and he'll be ready to start implementing those rules for us. And Steve, those were the 3 items I wanted to cover tonight. So I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Any questions here in the room or online? I don't see any here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron.
All right, Rebecca, we're running late, so.
Right, I have to be really fast. I think you guys have heard from the River District or some rumblings in the newspaper about the Shoshone sale and purchase agreement that was just finalized in December 19th. The River District signed with Excel Energy to purchase the Shoshone water rights, which is the oldest, most senior non-consumptive water right on the Colorado River. It was a $98.5 million purchase agreement, so not insignificant, but I think a lot of us know how valuable that water right is and how important it is for the West Slope. It's really vital for the 15-mile reach for the endangered fish species down in Grand Valley area, and just really for the vibrancy of the West Slope and really pulling that water westward so that it doesn't go over the divide in the other direction. So this has been something the River District has been working on for a really, really long time. It's a major win for the West Slope. We are happy to come and provide more information about that. We haven't been able to talk about it until that was signed last month. But we're happy to come and talk more at a future meeting. I just want to make 2 really quick points that I think are important for this basin to know. One, we are going to be funding $20 million out of our community funding partnership program to that purchase and sale agreement. Since we have a really strong equity target among the basins that we work in, that means that we're going to be looking for a lot of projects from the Yampa White Green Basin to fund, because this will go towards the Colorado main stem, and so over the next several years.
That's where the greens.
Yeah, the green would
So
be
no
great.
more money into the Colorado.
They will be receiving very little for the next few years. So we're going to be increasing the allotment. It's going to be about $3 million annually total for the Yampa White Green, the Gunnison Basin, and Pitkin County, which is an increase from previous years. So we just want to, we want to address that because we don't want basins to feel like we're giving all of our money to the main stem of the Colorado. That has been a major, talking point for us, and definitely we're aware that putting more money into these other basins.
Can you clarify what was the fund at before you took 20 million out?
Well, so it's 20 million over several years, right? So we have about $4.2 million a year for our community funding partnership program. So that's the total amount annually, but we've had that in effect for a few years, and we've been saving money for the Shoshone purchase, and we'll continue allocating some money. Does that make sense? It's not 20 million one year. So
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it will be really, it's a good thing. You can come to this basin and explain why this is a good deal for everybody. It's just, this is a critical thing. So, yeah.
This, not to overstate it, but this is the biggest win the West Slope has had in a very long time. The River District has been working on this for 85 years. So, major thing. Do with it, but definitely cheers to our upper management team. Just kind of my last point with that, in addition to kind of this funding, this isn't a done deal. Basically, it's going to be a major effort over the next few years in a 4-part process. We have until the end of 2027 to secure these 4 things that are in that purchase and sale agreement. The first one is we have to secure all the funding. We don't have all of that funding. We're going to be looking for partners with CWCB, Bureau of Reclamation, and others to receive funding further, we need to negotiate an in-stream flow agreement with CWCB because we cannot operate an in-stream flow agreement. It has to be through them. And then we're gonna have to do a change case. Go to water court. Right now, that water right is for hydropower, of course. We would be looking at to use it as an in-stream flow when hydropower is not in use. Hydropower would still be happening, but if there was an outage, which we've seen a lot of recently, and that's just showing power plant, then we would be able to use it. So that's a really brief overview. But we're happy to come and provide more details, but there's some news articles, so feel free to search or to reach out to me if you want.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve, for giving me.
All right, Jeff and Ken, Big River update. You're on the clock. You're a minute late.
Ken, while I'm getting my desktop shared, why don't you remind us about the IBCC upcoming?
Yeah, I think Jeff has been a real dagger here, driving forward this idea that roundtables have a higher and greater potential to contribute to all things water in the state of Colorado and in cooperation with the Colorado Water Conservation Board. And so, and in response to that, we're seeing some significant changes in the scope of work being considered for the IBCC and the whole role that roundtables will play in discussions other than just granting state funds back to worthy projects at the Basin level. So in that response is going to be first evident at our meeting in February. We have 3 meetings a year. First meeting will be in February. That meeting is, instead of 2 hours, will be scheduled from 9 to 4. So we're going to be talking about a lot more than we typically have, and a lot of it will be about what role the roundtables might be able to play in forest health and stream restoration and other really important projects. So I think T-Rod would say, yeah, that's been a long time coming, but so we're really excited about that. The next meeting will be in June, not yet designated. We'll be considering the final, we'll be looking at some ideas for the C9 summit at February meeting. We'll be running pretty much of a draft agenda past the roundtable or past IBCC at the June meeting. And then we're going to talk about merging the IBCC meeting with the C9 for a fall meeting. And it would probably not be in November. We want to move it forward into October. So hopefully even more of us can attend the C9, which is really an opportunity to cross-pollinate with the other roundtables in the state. Any ideas that you have on any of this water policy, cross-pollination ideas, we'd love to hear before the February 27th meeting. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, if you were at the Big River Committee meeting today, or if you weren't, we talked about 2 things. So you're going to get, maybe you touched on this and my comments on follow, so you're getting the SEIS maybe a little more than you bargained for. We tried to look at what UCRC, the Upper Colorado River Commission, Colorado River District in their letter, and our own, and kind of try to see what is the West Slope, what did the West Slope say to the Bureau, and we found really good alignment, making sure that those lower division reductions were mandatory and non-retrievable. We all made the point that it was inappropriate to scale back those lower division reductions just on the basis of 1 good snow year. And we've already seen worries and downgraded forecasts by the Bureau for reservoir elevations. We all focused on accounting for evaporative and transportation losses as a part of the lower divisions allocations. And every one of us expressed the concern that those reductions based on their action alternative, which was, again, to remind you, accepting the lower division proposal, are really not enough to safeguard the river in the long term. A couple points that the UCRC and CRB made that we did not there was in the draft in April, you probably can't remember back there, but we tried to highlight for you. There was some things about that that were very simple, and one of them was an operational tier criteria that said, if elevation of Lake Powell falls below 3,575 feet, for whatever reason, your fault, my fault, nobody's fault, we are constraining releases to 6 million acre feet for that water year. Anyone can understand that. It's simple. That did not really sit very well with Florida Division, as you can imagine. That was not a part of the proposed action alternative in the latest release. So River District put some pretty strong language in there saying that needs to be reinstated. And then secondly, both River District and UCRC made the point about the designation of those lower division reductions. There's a contractual form called an intentionally created surplus, which is not really a reduction use, but simply a deferment. And there's a way in which you could interpret the lower division's proposal as an intentionally created surplus. I'm not going to deplete your reservoir this month. I'll wait till next month. And we want to be, not that we have any experience with the lower division using loopholes for self-interested ways. But just to make sure, we're going to tie up our camel and say, let's be sure that that cannot be defined as an intentionally created surplus. So that was the SEIS. I think we probably talked about the drought task force 4 or 5 times as much as we need to. But again, I would strongly urge you to go look at that website. You can read the report. You don't have to read all 63 pages. It is well laid out. It's easy to follow.
Easy to scan.
And so we strongly recommend that you go take a look. Questions?
Yeah, so on your previous slide, on the 2 items that were additionally made by UCRC and CRD. So that goes back to, you asked about the River District's recommendation or whatever. I think one of the things that's, and I should have mentioned it then and I didn't, that's why I'm going to do it now. One of the concerns about that was, well, so if we start throwing stuff out there, does that tie Becky Mitchell's hands to make those negotiations? However, since Colorado River District is actually making this point also, I know for a fact that they do a lot of negotiating down there also. So, this is something I'm curious to see where this goes. Because it's come up a bunch. So just a point that I just wanted to point out.
Yeah, there's been that vibe, and you hear it from Front Ridge people. Rebecca probably hears talk around the shop. There's sort of been that vibe that sometimes people in the West want to push so hard that it might put Commissioner Mitchell in an awkward spot at the negotiating table. I just didn't see that, Mike, in that requirement for the guidelines. I don't know. I think
we collaborated closely with their staff. We were not running amok, and we were just very careful to make sure that at least all the concepts that we were going to express were clearly expressed to them and giving them a chance to say, whoa, wait a minute, we're not comfortable with that. In fact, it was just kind of the opposite. They're like, we've got to get 4 states on board. I want to say some of this stuff.
so. I feel like there's a little bit of a red herring there, Mike.
I agree.
That's just my opinion.
You too.
Becca, do you have one?
No, yeah, I agree. I also, Commissioner Mitchell was mixing words very much, I think some of the comments that Kurt were not harsh, truthful. She wasn't trying to say feelings.
Yeah, no, she came to talk to the task force. I mean, that was pretty adamant what she was telling us.
How could you, why that will be so bad?
So I didn't bring this up when we ratified the letter. My question is, should we take a position as a roundtable on those additional points? Not that we'd add them in another letter, but my point is, I assume we support those 2 points. And so on a go forward basis, we want to somehow include our knowledge, our support.
Yeah, well, the comment period's closed, but maybe,
get that.
maybe where we do it, T-Right, is in the ongoing efforts towards post 2026.
I was gonna say post 2026 is where we can do that.
And you know, that's a can of worms, and to think that there are gonna be operational tier changes that are that simple and constrained is probably not realistic, but by God, there's nothing wrong with, you know, the yokels like us getting our ideas out there.
Yeah, well, and add limits.
Yeah, I mean, at least the idea got put in there. It'll be interesting to see when the final EIS comes out. What exactly does it, what are they gonna say about those comments?
Yeah. Will they, it's almost certainty, right, that something like the lower division proposals will go forward. You'll see it in those contracts, because the contracts will be done for the SEIS. But well, how far will they go to cover off those issues that we here in the Western Circle highlight? That'll be.
That's a point that Amy was making.
Yeah, how far will they go?
How sincere was Andy when he was saying how we gotta really deal with our reductions where it's time? Well, it's an easy talk.
Okay, well, Jeff took an extra minute, so be 9 minutes next meeting.
I want to make a quick comment on the drought task force stuff. That right now is critical that we watch that those recommendations end up the correct way in legislation, because the risk is so great of not so much the ones they agreed upon being twisted as much as the narrative stuff being twisted. And especially that power plant one. I mean, we need to use your relationships to make sure that doesn't get caught up in that.
It's in my notes.
Yes, and you need to Yampa, you guys that were on the task force to actually make sure that those bills don't end up twisting the language.
Yeah, I agree. And I just wonder if that's, that's why he hasn't he hasn't shouted to the rooftops, I want to take this bill around. If it was a recommendation, he probably would have. It'll be curious to see what happens in the next couple.
So the next, this could go all the way.
To add a quick plug to that, River District, we do have a Zane Kessler, who's the Director of Government Relations. During the legislative session, working very long weeks to be informed of what's happening and working on those bills. And he does provide weekly updates to our board that as of last year have been public. So if you're interested in listening into those updates weekly, I think they're Thursdays at noon. Let me know and I can get you the email to sign up for those.
Andy was on that task force too, so they're Zane, represents those groups pretty actually.
Oh, yes. Zane is very skilled at his job. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Jeff. All right, Patrick.
Capital update. I guess I'm gonna, all right, so capital update, hopefully you guys saw our yearly report that I put in there in your meeting packet. You want to see what I've done for you guys last year. It's in the meeting packet. But what's coming up new? We've been working on this introduction video. It's going to be 3.5 minutes long. Hopefully by March we will have a video to actually show you what Yampa YWG Basin does there. Our next big project is a story map. So
that video, is that when you go onto our website, would that be one of the first links that you can hit?
That'll be one of the first links you can hit.
You're gonna like this video. We spent some time on this.
It's a very short introduction, and not, it's not gonna be shorter than the ones we have on there. But it will just basically focus, what is the roundtable? Our next big project we've been working on that you guys allowed us to go for the PEPO grant is a story map. So that's sort of, you know, like the GSI stuff that's on the webpage, you can click and change layers, and tells different stories about what that is. Yampa is taking the lead on that. I'm gonna find us a contractor to help us to figure out what we can need, who needs to be on it, and how we can operate this story map so that Yampa can use it right from the classroom. If somebody wants to know more about the watershed, we can find more information about that. So that's our next big project. As you remember, last year we made canopies. So we got 2 canopies, one in Steamboat, one in Meeker, I hope, somewhere. Meeker Rangeley, somewhere down there.
It's over here in Rangeley.
Okay, there it is. Good.
We could be renting that out for $1,000 a month up here.
Beer garden.
There you go.
So these canopies, we need to get out to these public events. So we're going to get a list of events of what we think these canopies can be put to. You're going to see a survey coming from me. Please fill it out, all roundtable members, voting on where you think these events should be.
In February.
In February. If you do not vote, you will be assigned to one of these events and expected to be there. So please vote.
Is that a threat?
That's a threat. That's a promise. Promise. Remember, you get paid $50.
You pay $50, come get it, set it up, sit there all day, come back. Yeah. We need to know what events to be at because we got to figure out how to budget, get some pre-registration, paid space reserved. You know, like the Baker Stock Dog trials, they're already, if you don't have it in by February, you're not having a booth there unless you know some board members. And we have some people inside that can do that. But, you know, we need to figure out where we need to be at with these events. And also, yes, by somewhat filling out the survey, we're going to expect somebody to be there, possibly. So you're sort of saying where you can and can't be. So please look for that in February. Anything else?
Real dumb question. Is it possible, or have we ever thought about doing a scholarship through PEPO?
No.
Scholarship for what?
Like high school graduate?
We have to submit a grant application to the WCB, and we tend to, it's kind of just a few basic categories that are all directly related to it. So a scholarship doesn't immediately like hit the top tier or something we're trying to get done. And we just got an increase of funding from $6,500 a year to $25,000. So I mean, and that doesn't go a long ways for the number of projects that we're trying to get done.
No, it certainly doesn't, but I mean, it's like sometimes that's notoriety, like during graduation, you know, it's like $1,000 scholarship through White Green or something. It's outreach.
And you know, we have to see that fits the guidelines for CWCB too.
I don't think it does, but it just, like I said, dumb question I wanted to throw out there.
Jeff, you guys ever talk about that?
I was just about to chime in. I think that's a really great question. I don't know that we've ever even talked about that. You know, we certainly have talked about how to bring kind of the next generation of water leaders into the fold, into roundtable discussions and stuff like that. The furthest we got was, you know, the recorder position would be a great place for a college student, and some extra money. I'll bring that up to Russ and Elizabeth and just let them know that came up tonight and see kind of what they say. I don't know that it's like in direct conflict with the PEPO guidelines. I don't know that we've ever had that discussion, but it's certainly an interesting idea.
We get our name read at the graduation, which is usually fairly well attended.
Yeah, I think that's a a really interesting idea and potentially one that might even be, escalate up to the statewide program too. So I'll make sure to feed that up and Ken, write that down for the next PEPO meeting too, Ken and Patrick. I think that's a great idea, but I'll feed that up to Russ and Elizabeth and just let them know that came up.
And let's leave it to Will Myers.
Memorial.
Memorial. What are you talking about here?
So that, but it does bring up a point that next meeting, March 13th, we'll be bringing in a pre-WSRF application for PEPO.
Oh, yeah.
We're down to $25,000 and the $99,000 that you supplied 2021, and it's taking us long to get through that. But coming back and asking if you guys want to spend more money on what we've been doing, and
We'll go to grants in April and we'll be back to you in May.
So
if you want to come to our PEPO meeting in March, we'll be talking about it.
So
anybody with new ideas for spending money on shore.
We'll make room for you, Will.
So anything else?
I have one other item, but it's not PEPO related.
Okay. All right, so is it an announcement?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I made this announcement earlier, but I know not everyone's heard it. You're all familiar with the Airborne Snow Observatory. I've been tracking that pretty close the last few years. We got an announcement just a few days ago that they have received some Bureau of Reclamation funding. About 18 months ago, Jeff Deans was, I think he appreciates the fact that I've been testifying in front of all these different groups about the importance of gathering that kind of data. And this is the LiDAR radar data that gives us a very accurate snowpack. Well, anyway, he managed to get, they paid for the snow off flight in the Elk and Yampa River, upper portion. He has just received funding, probably I think the number he quoted me was $440,000 worth of money to do 2 snow on flights this year. So we'll have our first coordination meeting next week to talk about when we're going to schedule those. It's always, you got to do it on a clear day. It's got to be the right time of year. But anyway, that's really exciting that we're starting to see some of this Bureau of Reclamation money that was set aside for this route trying to deal with not be given to the lower basin states for doing what they're supposed to be doing already, but actually helping gather important data that gives us some sense of what kind of snowpack we actually have up here and how much water we have to share with the lower basin. So good news.
Very good news indeed.
Okay. So I have a couple of announcements. In order to try to make these meetings move along a little smoother, we've reinstituted the executive committee, which is the chair, the 2 vice chairs, and the committee heads, and anybody else that wants to sit in. And our main focus is setting the agenda for the next meeting. So we are scheduled to meet the Wednesday before our regular meeting. So like last Wednesday, we met and set the agenda. We've been working hard on that. You notice today that we repeated who made motions and in some cases said, Ken Brenner, I'll make this motion. Because it's really hard if people don't tell their names for that owl to pick it up. I listened for, I don't know how Katie does it. I listened for 4 hours. And one of the motions I didn't get was one I did. Because I should write down what I did at the meetings. The other thing I want to mention is that almost at the end of your packet, there's a Yampa white green presentation guidelines. So the executive committee, mostly Jeff, pulled together some presentation guidelines. We've been caught up really bad with being here until 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night because people bring too much information and they can't get through it in the time that they should. Even tonight, we got hit for an extra 10 minutes with Jonathan's.
We were ahead at that time, so we didn't really put the screws down.
Yeah,
Maybe we
yeah.
would,
And then I would like to see, so I've talked to Patrick about.
Well, and the point is that when we put a time behind an agenda item, and it says 10 minutes, I mean, we really want you to try to be close to 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Or less.
Yeah, or less. And then we can, what I'd like to do is for people to think about what are the upcoming projects like. So our next meeting is March 13th. What are out there for events that are gonna be from March 13th to May 10th or 11th, whatever our meeting date is. Because I'd like to put that out on our, in our announcements, what those are, rather than people have to go find them on the website and whatever. I'd like to just be able to put them there. If we got time, great, we can read them. If we don't have time, they're at least on the agenda. You see them, you see the date, you see what it is. I think that's good.
So the events that are coming up between now and March that I know of is Colorado Water Congress, IWBC meeting, White River Conservation and Douglas Creek annual meeting is February 10th. What else is?
Colorado First is February 20th.
Yeah.
Colorado First is February 20th. Usually water talks at those.
When is the meeting? Where is it at?
It's the Monday and Tuesday before the Colorado Water Congress. So it's the 29th and 30th, same location. And, so I mean, I'm gonna go down for the whole week. It's a good time it's a great time to get public comments in, because there's not many people that go to those meetings other than all of the department heads and the board. So you get one-on-one time with just about anybody.
Okay, so our next meeting is March 13th at 6 o'clock in this very room. I take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Jeff,
So
okay?
moved by Jeff.
You're supposed to say your name first, right? Is that the
Yes.
rule?
Yes.
Yeah, all-
All right, all in favor, say aye. All right, thank you.
Aye.